Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Thank you for joining us on this early morning flight from Palma de Mallorca to Tenerife. We are scheduled to depart at 4 a.m., and our team is ready and eager to ensure a comfortable and safe journey aboard our Airbus A319. We will be taking off from runway 06R, and our landing is planned on runway 08. Throughout our flight, we will adhere to all standard aviation procedures to guarantee safety. On board, you will find all the necessary amenities to make every minute of your journey enjoyable. Our crew is here to attend to your needs, so please do not hesitate to approach them with any questions or requests. The safety and comfort of our passengers are our top priorities, so please fasten your seatbelts and prepare for takeoff. Once again, thank you for flying with us. I wish you a calm flight and a pleasant experience as we travel to one of the most beautiful destinations on our planet. Okay, push back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking once again. As we settle into our journey from Palma de Mallorca to the beautiful island of Tenerife, I thought it might be interesting to share some captivating stories and insights about the world of aviation, particularly focusing on our aircraft today, the Airbus A319. Aviation is more than just a means of transportation. It's a field rich with history, innovation, and remarkable tales that have shaped the way we fly today. Our trusty A319, for example, is not just a feat of engineering, but also a vessel that carries with it lessons from the past and hopes for the future. Throughout our flight, I'll be sharing some intriguing stories, including how certain events and incidents have led to significant advancements in aviation safety. Discussing past accidents might seem daunting, but it's important to recognize how these experiences have contributed to making flying one of the safest ways to travel. Each incident has been a catalyst for improvement, leading to better technology, stricter regulations, and enhanced training for all aviation professionals. One notable story involves an A319 that experienced a rare dual-engine failure shortly after takeoff, thanks to the exceptional skill and calm demeanor of the pilots. The aircraft was safely glided back to the runway, and all passengers walked away unharmed. This incident led to advancements in engine design and emergency protocols, ensuring that future flights are even safer. Another fascinating aspect of aviation is how it brings people together. The skies have seen countless heartwarming events, from surprise family reunions to onboard celebrations that have turned ordinary flights into unforgettable experiences. These stories remind us that while we navigate the technicalities of flight, it's the human connections that truly make the journey worthwhile. As we cruise above the clouds, consider the marvel of flight itself. Just over a century ago, the idea of soaring through the skies was merely a dream. Today, it's a reality that connects continents and cultures. The Airbus A319 we're aboard is a testament to how far we've come, a sophisticated machine, capable of safely transporting us across vast distances with ease. I'll also share some insights into how pilots are trained to handle various scenarios. For instance, simulators play a crucial role in preparing us for any situation that might arise, from severe weather conditions to unexpected technical issues. This rigorous training ensures that we're equipped to make the best decisions in the interest of everyone's safety. Speaking of weather, have you ever wondered how it affects our flight? Pilots and meteorologists work closely to chart the best routes, avoiding turbulence and storms whenever possible. This collaboration not only makes the flight smoother, but also more efficient, saving time and fuel. As we fly over the stunning landscapes below, keep an eye out for notable landmarks. The transition from the Mediterranean's azure waters to the Atlantic's vast expanse is a sight to behold. It's moments like these that highlight the sheer beauty of our planet, a reminder of the importance of preserving it for future generations. For those interested in the technical side of things, the Airbus A319 is equipped with state-of-the-art avionics and navigation systems. These technologies allow us to monitor every aspect of the flight in real time, ensuring optimal performance and safety. Innovations like fly-by-wire controls have revolutionized how modern aircraft operate, providing greater precision and reliability. Now, let's delve into some of the pioneering figures in aviation history. Legends like Amelia Earhart and Charles Lindbergh paved the way for modern pilots, breaking barriers and setting records that continue to inspire us today. Their courage and determination remind us of the endless possibilities when we dare to dream. Flying also offers a unique perspective on environmental phenomena. From witnessing the curvature of the Earth at high altitudes to observing weather patterns from above, it's an experience that often leaves one in awe. It's a privilege that comes with a responsibility to advocate for sustainable practices that minimize our impact on the environment. As we continue our journey, feel free to relax and perhaps strike up a conversation with your fellow passengers. You never know, the person sitting next to you might have their own interesting stories to share, maybe even about their travels or experiences with aviation. For the younger explorers on board, if you've ever looked up at the sky and wondered what it would be like to fly among the stars, remember that every pilot started with a simple dream. With dedication and hard work, you too could one day take the controls and navigate the skies. In the spirit of curiosity, here's a fun fact. The longest commercial flight ever recorded lasted over 19 hours, connecting the cities halfway around the world. This achievement showcases the incredible advancements in aircraft endurance and passenger comfort. Before I wrap up this announcement, I'd like to express my gratitude for having you all on board. Each flight is a new adventure, and sharing these stories adds a special touch to our journey. If there's a particular topic or question you'd like me to address, don't hesitate to let our cabin crew know. They can relay your inquiries, and I'll do my best to provide answers during our flight. Thank you for your attention. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the flight. The wonders of Tenerife await us, a place rich in natural beauty and cultural heritage. Whether you're visiting for the first time or returning, I hope this trip adds wonderful memories to your journey. We are ready to take off. Dear passengers, this is your captain speaking. In a moment, we will ascend into the skies, leaving the beautiful Palma de Mallorca and heading towards sunny Tenerife. Please ensure that your seatbelts are fastened and seat backs are in the upright position. During our flight, I would like to share with you some fascinating stories and trivia from the world of aviation that will surely make our journey more enjoyable. Did you know that Tenerife is home to the highest peak in Spain, the Tide volcano? Or have you heard about the extraordinary events that have taken place in the history of this beautiful location? I will also tell you about the secrets of our Airbus A319, how technology and past experiences have made flying one of the safest ways to travel today. I have prepared a few stories about events that have changed the face of aviation and influenced safety procedures. I invite you to join us on a journey not only across the sky, but also through a history filled with passion, courage, and innovation. I hope these stories will interest you and make the time spent on board pass quickly and pleasantly. I wish you a peaceful flight and unforgettable experiences. Thank you for choosing our airline. If you have any questions or would like to hear about something specific, let our crew know. I am eager to share my knowledge and experience. As we climb and settle into our journey, I'd like to share some compelling stories from aviation history tales that have profoundly influenced the safety and procedures we benefit from today. Over the next few hours, we'll delve into some notable incidents that occurred in the very regions we're flying over, including Palma de Mallorca and Tenerife. These stories have captured public interest and have led to significant advancements in how we fly. One such event is the tragic accident on Tenerife in 1977, known as the deadliest in aviation history. Two Boeing 747 collided on the runway amid heavy fog and miscommunications. While this was a heartbreaking incident, it brought about critical changes in air traffic control procedures and pilot communication protocols. The emphasis on clear communication and standardized phrases was greatly enhanced, making air travel safer for everyone. Another incident worth discussing is the Danair Flight 1008 crash in 1980. The aircraft, while approaching Tenerife, unfortunately collided with mountainous terrain due to navigational errors. This led to significant improvements in navigational aids and approach procedures, especially in challenging environments like mountainous areas. Pilots now have better tools and training to ensure such tragedies are avoided. From Palma de Mallorca, our departure point, there was the Spantax Flight 995 incident in 1972. Shortly after takeoff, the aircraft experienced an engine failure. Thanks to the skillful handling by the crew, they managed an emergency landing, and all passengers were safe. This event highlighted the importance of rigorous maintenance checks and emergency preparedness, leading to enhanced safety protocols that are in place today. In 1996, an LTE International Airways flight faced landing gear issues after departing from Palma de Mallorca. The pilots executed a flawless emergency landing. Incidents like this have driven home the necessity for thorough pre-flight inspections and advancements in aircraft design. Discussing these events isn't meant to cause concern, but rather to illustrate the resilience and continuous improvement within the aviation industry. Each challenge has provided valuable lessons, prompting innovations that ensure the safety and comfort of every passenger. Throughout our flight, I'll share more about these incidents, focusing on how they've shaped modern aviation. We'll explore the human factors, technological advancements, and procedural changes that emerged from these experiences. It's fascinating to see how far we've come, and how each lesson learned contributes to the reliability of air travel today. So, as we cruise above the clouds, I invite you to reflect on these stories of progress and innovation. They not only underscore the importance of safety in aviation, but also highlight the dedication of countless professionals committed to making flying one of the safest modes of transportation. Feel free to relax and enjoy the journey. If you have any questions or thoughts you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to let our cabin crew know. I'm more than happy to provide further insights or discuss any aspects of our flight that interests you. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of aviation history. Let's make this flight not just a passage to our destination, but an engaging experience that enriches our appreciation for the incredible world of flight. As we continue soaring through the skies, I want to express my gratitude for sharing this journey with me. Your presence makes these flights truly memorable, and it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to delve into these captivating stories together. If you find these tales intriguing, or if there's anything specific you'd like to hear about, please feel free to share your thoughts with our cabin crew. Your curiosity and engagement enrich our shared experience and inspire me to explore even more fascinating aspects of aviation history. Let's make this flight not just a means to reach Tenerife, but a shared adventure filled with discovery and reflection. Together, we'll continue to uncover the remarkable events and advancements that have shaped the world of aviation into what it is today. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Sit back, relax, and let's enjoy the rest of our flight together. You know I've been thinking about the remarkable history of the airplanes we fly. Take the Airbus A319, for example. It's not just another model in a long line of aircraft. It's the result of vision, innovation, and the need to meet the challenges of a changing aviation world. In the 1980s, Airbus was making its first strides in competing with industry giants. By introducing the A320, it showed the world it was ready to redefine standards with technologies like fly-by-wire and a modern digital cockpit. But the market needed more. Airlines were looking for an aircraft that would be efficient on shorter routes, carrying fewer passengers without sacrificing comfort or performance. Thus, the idea for the A319 was born. However, creating this aircraft wasn't just about shortening an existing model. Engineers faced the challenge of maintaining aerodynamics, balance, and performance with a smaller fuselage. They shortened it by about 3.7 meters, which corresponds to 4 rows of seats, but kept the same wings and engines as the A320. This made the A319 lighter, yet capable of flying longer distances on a single tank of fuel. The A319's maiden flight took place on August 25, 1995. It immediately won the hearts of airlines and pilots alike. The versatility of the cockpit meant that pilots could easily switch between different Airbus models without extensive retraining. This was a huge operational advantage, saving time and costs. Passengers appreciated the comfort of the spacious cabin, which, despite the aircraft's smaller size, offered comfort comparable to larger planes. But that's not all. The A319 quickly gained a reputation as a versatile aircraft. It became a favorite among VIP and corporate clients, transforming into luxurious business jets for heads of state and business people. Its ability to land on shorter runways and operate under challenging conditions also made it a valuable asset in military and humanitarian missions. Interestingly, by keeping the engines and wings from the A320, the A319 achieved a better power-to-weight ratio. This allowed for increased range and fuel efficiency, which was a hit in times of growing environmental awareness. Looking at the evolution of the A319, you can see how innovation and adaptation are key to success in aviation. This aircraft has become a symbol of the ability to adapt to market needs without sacrificing quality or safety. In a world where technologies change rapidly and passenger expectations rise, the A319 remains proof that thoughtful design and engineering can create something timeless. It's a machine that combines history, modernity, and the future of aviation. So, the next time you hear the hum of Airbus A319 engines, think about the people who designed it, the challenges they overcame, and how this aircraft has changed the face of air travel. It's not just metal and technology, it's a story of passion, vision, and the pursuit of pushing the boundaries of possibility. Under the gray canopy of a typical London morning on May 24, 2013, passengers boarded British Airways Flight 762, an Airbus 319, with the usual mix of anticipation and routine. Families settled into their seats, business travelers checked their emails one last time, and flight attendants conducted safety demonstrations with practiced ease. Little did anyone suspect they were moments away from a harrowing ordeal that would test the very limits of human courage and technological resilience. As the aircraft roared down the runway at Heathrow Airport, everything seemed ordinary. The Airbus 319 lifted gracefully into the air, climbing steadily toward the clouds. But mere minutes into the flight, passengers on the left side heard an unsettling noise, loud bang, followed by vibrations. Eyes widened in horror as flames and smoke billowed from the left engine. Panic rippled through the cabin. Whispers turned to gasps as the reality of the situation sank in. In the cockpit, alarms blared relentlessly. The pilots received multiple warnings: engine failure, fire detection alerts, systems malfunctions. The sudden onslaught shattered the calm of the morning. Maintaining composure under immense pressure, the captain declared a mayday to air traffic control, requesting an immediate return to Heathrow. Back in the cabin, fear escalated. Flight attendants moved swiftly, their own anxieties masked by a veneer of professional calm. They reassured passengers, ensured seatbelts were fastened, and prepared everyone for an emergency landing. The aircraft began a cautious turn, but another shock awaited them. The right engine also began exhibiting problems. Unbeknownst to all on board, both engines had lost their protective covers during takeoff, leading to fuel leaks and subsequent fires. At 1,500 feet, any malfunction could be catastrophic. The pilots faced a dire situation. Dual engine issues over one of the world's busiest urban areas. The stakes could not have been higher. Yet, amid the cacophony of alarms and palpable tension, their training and experience prevailed. They shut down the compromised systems and stabilized the aircraft, guiding the wounded Airbus 319 back to ward. Heathrow. Every second stretched into an eternity. Emergency services scrambled on the ground. Runways were cleared, fire engines and ambulances positioned, and the world watched anxiously as news of the unfolding drama began to spread. The descent was tense. Passengers held hands, some whispering prayers, others staring ahead with blank expressions, their minds numb with fear. The sight of the ground approaching offered both hope and dread. Would they make it? Could the aircraft hold together long enough for a safe landing? In a display of remarkable airmanship, the pilots touched down smoothly. The landing gear met the runway with a reassuring thud, and the aircraft gradually decelerated to a halt. Relief washed over everyone like a wave. Cheers and applause erupted, quickly giving way to urgent instructions from the crew. Leave everything behind. Evacuate immediately. Escape slides deployed, and passengers hurried away from the aircraft, the smell of smoke still heavy in the air. Once everyone was safely on the ground, the gravity of what had happened began to sink in. Tears flowed freely. Strangers embraced, united by the shared trauma. There were no serious injuries, a testament to the crew's professionalism and the aircraft's design, but the incident left an indelible mark on all who experienced it. It was a stark reminder of how swiftly routine can turn into peril. The investigation that followed revealed a chilling oversight. During routine maintenance, the engine fan cowl doors had not been secured properly. This lapse led to their detachment and the ensuing chain of events. The findings sent shockwaves through the aviation community, highlighting the critical importance of meticulous attention to detail in every aspect of aircraft operation. But for those on Flight 762, the technical explanations mattered little compared to the raw memories of that terrifying flight. For many passengers, life took on new meaning. Stories emerged of last-minute decisions that felt fateful in hindsighted seat change. A delayed earlier flight, a spontaneous trip, parents clung tighter to their children. Individuals reconsidered priorities, some vowing never to fly again. The crew, hailed as heroes, grappled with their own emotional aftermath, replaying the incident in their minds, questioning if anything could have been done differently. While the Airbus 319 boasts an exemplary safety record, the drama of that day lingers as a potent narrative of tension, fear, and ultimate relief. It serves as a powerful reminder that even in an age of advanced technology and rigorous safety protocols, unpredictability is an ever-present companion in the skies. The courage of the pilots, the calm determination of the crew, and the resilience of the passengers converged to avert tragedy. The sky, vast and indifferent, holds many secrets. Every flight carries within it untold possibilities, most mundane, some extraordinary. The tale of British Airways Flight 762 underscores the thin line between routine and catastrophe. A line navigated with skill, composure, and perhaps a touch of fate. It stands as a dramatic chapter in the history of the Airbus 319, echoing the timeless truth that in aviation, as in life, moments of crisis reveal the essence of character and the profound value of human connection. As the sun set on that unforgettable day, the silhouettes of grounded planes stood against the horizon, silent witnesses to the day's events. For those who lived through it, the experience became a defining story, a testament to survival. a brush with disaster that would forever color their perception of the world. And for the rest of us, it serves as a gripping reminder of the hidden dramas that unfold beyond the clouds, where courage and calamity often share the same flight path. You're enjoying this live stream. Please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Your support helps me bring more content like this to you, and it truly means a lot to have you along for the journey. Right now, we're cruising comfortably at 35,000 feet, making our way from the beautiful Palma de Mallorca to the enchanting island of Tenerife. The early morning sun is casting a golden hue over the clouds below, creating a breathtaking tapestry that's truly a sight to behold. You can now unfasten your seatbelts and perhaps take a moment to stretch. The cabin crew will be coming around shortly with a selection of beverages and snacks, so feel free to order yourself a warm cup of coffee or a refreshing juice. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the stunning views as we glide gracefully through the sky. As we settle into our flight, I wanted to share a story with you, one that is both profound and deeply moving. It's a tale that underscores the complexities of aviation and serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of safety, vigilance, and the human connections that bind us all. It's the story of Spanner Flight JK5022, a flight that began like any other but ended in tragedy, leaving an indelible mark on the hearts of many. Let me take you back to August 20th, 2008 a day. That dawned hot and clear over Madrid Barajas airport. The heat wave gripping Spain was relentless, with temperatures soaring above 36 degrees Celsius or 97 degrees Fahrenheit. The air shimmered over the tarmac, and a haze hung in the atmosphere, giving the day an almost surreal quality. Passengers began arriving at the airport early, eager to embark on their journey to Gran Canaria destination, known for its golden beaches, azure waters, and vibrant nightlife. Among them were people from all walks of life. There was a businessman heading to a conference, carrying with him important documents and the weight of corporate expectations. Maria and Carlos' young couple were off to celebrate their first anniversary, their eyes filled with the excitement of new adventures. Families with children laughed and chatted, the little ones tugging at their parents' hands, impatient to begin their vacation. Flight JK5022 was scheduled for an afternoon departure. The McDonnell Douglas MD-82 aircraft assigned to the flight had already seen many years of service, a workhorse of the skies. The crew for the day included Captain Antonio Garcia Luna, an experienced pilot with thousands of flight hours under his belt, and First Officer Francisco Javier Mulat, who was also well regarded for his professionalism and skill. As boarding commenced, flight attendants greeted passengers with warm smiles, assisting with luggage and helping everyone settle in. The cabin was abuzz with conversations, the clinking of seatbelts, and the rustle of newspapers and magazines. The air conditioning struggled to combat the oppressive heat, and some passengers fanned themselves, hoping for relief. However, unbeknownst to those on board, the aircraft had already experienced a technical issue earlier that day. During a previous flight, a problem had been identified with the RAM air temperature prober device, critical for measuring external air temperature, which in turn affects engine performance and other systems. Maintenance crews had been notified, and a decision was made to defer the repair by pulling the circuit breaker for the probe, effectively deactivating it. This action, while permissible under certain conditions, had unintended consequences. Deactivating the RAM air temperature probe also disabled the takeoff. Warning system, a safety feature designed to alert pilots if the aircraft is not properly configured for takeoff, such as if the flaps and slats are not extended. As the aircraft taxied to the runway, the pilots conducted their pre-flight checks. However, due to a combination of factors including possible distractions, procedural lapses, and perhaps the effects of fatigues, they failed to extend the flaps and slats. Without these critical components deployed, the aircraft would not generate the necessary lift for a safe takeoff. At 2:24 p.m., Flight JK502 to begin its takeoff roll on runway 36. Left. The engines roared, and the aircraft accelerated down the runway. In the cabin, passengers felt the familiar push of acceleration, some gripping their armrests, others gazing out the windows as the landscape rushed by. As the plane reached takeoff speed, the pilots pulled back on the control column to lift the nose of the aircraft. The nose rose, but the aircraft struggled to become airborne. There was an unsettling vibration, and the plane began to veer slightly to the right. The pilots realized something was wrong, but there was little time to react. The stall warning sounded briefly, and the aircraft's left wingtip clipped the ground. In a horrifying sequence lasting mere seconds, the aircraft crashed beside the runway, breaking apart and bursting into flames. A massive plume of black smoke billowed into the sky, visible from miles away. The sound of the impact and ensuing explosions echoed across the airport. Emergency services were dispatched immediately. Firefighters, paramedics, and police raced to the scene, navigating through debris in intense heat. The sight that greeted them was devastating twisted metal, scattered luggage, and the remnants of what had been a passenger aircraft full of life just moments before. Amidst the chaos, stories of bravery and resilience emerged. Flight attendants, despite their own injuries, worked to assist passengers. One attendant, Paula, managed to guide several passengers to safety before collapsing from smoke inhalation. Passengers helped one another, some carrying the injured away from the wreckage, others providing comfort to those in shock. Of the 172 people on board, 154 lost their lives. The tragedy was the deadliest air disaster in Spain in over 2 decades. The nation was plunged into mourning. The investigation into the crash was extensive and meticulous. The Civil Aviation Accident and Incident Investigation Commission worked alongside international experts to uncover the causes. Flight data recorders were recovered and analyzed, providing crucial insights into the aircraft's final moments. The cockpit voice recorder revealed the pilots' conversations, shedding light on the sequence of events. It became clear that the failure to extend the flaps and slats was the primary cause of the accident. The deactivation of the takeoff warning system meant that the pilots received no warning of the improper configuration. Additionally, the investigation highlighted deficiencies in the airline's maintenance procedures, training programs, and safety culture. Interviews with maintenance personnel revealed gaps in communication, and understanding of the implications of deactivating certain systems. The pressures of operational demands and cost-cutting measures were also examined as contributing factors. The aftermath of the crash led to significant changes in the aviation industry, both within Spain and internationally. Airlines were required to review and enhance their maintenance practices, ensuring that all personnel were fully aware of the interconnectedness of aircraft systems. Training programs were updated to emphasize the critical importance of adherence to checklists and standard operating procedures. The tragedy also spurred advancements in technology. Aircraft manufacturers and regulatory bodies collaborated to develop more robust systems that could prevent similar accidents. This included designing warning systems with multiple redundancies, so that the deactivation of one component would not disable critical safety alerts. For the families of the victims, the path to healing was long and fraught with challenges. Many felt that justice was slow and that accountability was lacking. Legal battles ensued, with lawsuits filed against the airline, maintenance companies, and regulatory agencies. Memorials were established, and annual commemorations were held to honor the memories of those lost. The emotional toll extended beyond the immediate families. First responders and witnesses also grappled with the trauma of the event. Support groups and counseling services were established to help those affected cope with the psychological impact. In the years that followed, the legacy of Flight JK5022 became a catalyst for positive change. Safety standards improved, and the aviation community reaffirmed its commitment to prioritizing human life above all else. The lessons learned from the tragedy were integrated into training programs, regulatory frameworks, and the very fabric of aviation operations. As we continue our journey to Tenerife, flying safely above the clouds, it's important to remember the human stories behind such events. Each passenger on that flight had a life, dreams, loved ones, and a future that was tragically cut short. Their stories remind us of the profound responsibility we all share in ensuring the safety and well-being of one another. Before we conclude, I want to share one more story that emerged from the tragedy, a story that exemplifies the resilience of the human spirit. Among the survivors was a young man named Miguel. He was traveling alone, returning home after visiting family in Madrid. In the chaos following the crash, Miguel found himself amidst the wreckage, disoriented and injured. Despite his own pain, Miguel heard the cries of a child nearby. Summoning his strength, he crawled through the debris to reach a little boy trapped under a fallen seat. With great effort, he freed the child and carried him away from the burning wreckage. His selfless act saved a life and provided a glimmer of hope in an otherwise devastating situation. Miguel's story, like those of other survivors and heroes that day, reminds us of the capacity for courage and kindness, even in the darkest of times. It's a testament to the bonds that unite us and the difference that one person can make. As we sit here today, comfortably cruising above the clouds, it's sobering to reflect on how far aviation safety has come, often built on the hard lessons of past tragedies. Every safety announcement, every protocol, every checklist is there because lives depend on them. I share this story not to instill fear, but to honor the memories of those who lost their lives and to recognize the lessons learned from the tragedy. Your engagement and support make these conversations possible, and I appreciate the opportunity to reflect on these important topics together. If this story has resonated with you, or if you have any thoughts you'd like to share, please feel free to leave a comment below. Remember, every journey we take is not just about reaching a destination, but about the connections we make and the stories we share along the way. Let's cherish each moment, be grateful for the opportunities we have, and strive to make a positive impact wherever we go. Once again, thank you for joining me on this journey and for being part of this incredible community. Your support and engagement are truly appreciated. This last story was deeply emotional, wasn't it? Tragedies like these remind us that behind every journey lies a human story and a responsibility to ensure everyone's safety. Unfortunately, it wasn't the only disaster that forever changed how we think about flying. Just 2 years earlier, in 1980, something happened that shook the entire aviation world. Danair Flight 1008, a routine flight that was supposed to be ordinary, ended in unimaginable tragedy. It was a moment that left a permanent mark on aviation history, and its impact is still felt today in every safety procedure and regulation. If you're ready, let me take you back to that ill-fated flight, to the human errors, dramatic decisions, and the hard lessons we learned from it. It's a story that not only commands respect, but also reminds us how precious life is and how much it takes to keep the skies safe. It is a story of human error, technological limitations, and the profound impact of loss. We are talking about Danair Flight 1008, which met a catastrophic end in 1980. As we journey through this narrative, I encourage you to reflect, engage, and perhaps gain a deeper understanding of how such events shape the safety protocols we rely on today. Picture this. It is the early morning of the 25th of April, 1980, at Manchester Airport in England. A Boeing 727, operated by Danair, is preparing for departure. The aircraft gleams under the overcast sky, its engines humming softly as passengers board. Among them are families eager for a holiday business, travelers and individuals seeking a change of scenery, all united by the anticipation of warm sun and sandy beaches in Tenerife, one of the Canary Islands. As the passengers settle into their seats, the cabin buzzes with conversation. Children peer out of windows, marveling at the planes lined up on the tarmac. Flight attendants move gracefully down the aisles, ensuring everyone is comfortable. The scent of fresh coffee mingles with the subtle aroma of jet fuel. Unique combination that signals the start of a journey. In the cockpit, Captain David Smith and his crew perform their pre-flight checks with meticulous attention. The instruments flicker to life, and the radio crackles with communications from air traffic control. The weather reports indicate dense cloud cover over Tenerife, but nothing out of the ordinary for experienced pilots. As Flight 1008 taxis to the runway, the engines roar to full power. The aircraft accelerates, and with a gentle lift, it soars into the sky. Passengers watch as the patchwork of English countryside fades beneath them, giving way to the vast expanse of the ocean. The flight progresses smoothly, with only the occasional seatbelt sign interrupting the service. Hours pass, and the aircraft begins its descent toward Tenerife. However, the situation is more complex than it appears. The island's northern airport, Los Rodeos, is notorious for its challenging terrain and unpredictable weather conditions. Surrounded by rugged mountains, pilots must navigate carefully to avoid the peaks that loom invisibly within the clouds. As Flight 1008 approaches, air traffic control is managing multiple incoming flights. The radio frequencies are busy, filled with instructions and acknowledgments. Amid this flurry of communication, the controllers instruct Flight 1008 to enter a holding pattern known as the Tenerife VORDME. This procedure requires precise navigation, a series of turns and altitude adjustments to align the aircraft safely for landing. But here is where things start to unravel. The instructions given are ambiguous, and the holding pattern is complex, especially under the current weather conditions. The clouds are thick, obscuring the mountains that surround the approach path. Inside the cockpit, the crew discusses the procedure, trying to interpret the instructions accurately. Have you ever been in a situation where unclear directions led you astray, perhaps, while driving in an unfamiliar area? Imagine that feeling, but at 10,000 feet, with dozens of lives depending on your decisions. The pilots, relying on their instruments and experience, begin the holding pattern. However, a critical misinterpretation occurs. They initiate a turn too early, bringing the aircraft dangerously close to Mount La Esperanza, peak shrouded in mist and invisible to the naked eye. In these moments, the cockpit remains a scene of professional focus. The instruments display readings that suggest everything is normal, yet the altimeter indicates a descent below the minimum safe altitude for the area. The ground proximity warning system, a technology not yet advanced by today's standards, provides no alert. Suddenly, a mountain face emerges from the clouds, a massive wall of rock appearing almost instantaneously. There is barely time to react. The pilots attempt evasive action, pulling back on the controls, but it is too late. At 1:21 p.m., Flight 1008 crashes into the side of Mount La Esperanza. The impact is catastrophic. The sound of metal tearing and engines exploding echoes through the mountains. The forested slopes are scarred by debris and fire. All 146 passengers and crew on board lose their lives instantly. Let's pause here. I know this is heavy, and it brings up profound sadness. But it is crucial to understand not just what happened, but why it happened, so we can appreciate the importance of the safety measures we sometimes take for granted today. Rescue teams are dispatched immediately, but the terrain is treacherous. Thick vegetation, steep inclines, and the lingering mist make the operation arduous. Emergency personnel navigate through the wreckage, their senses overwhelmed by the smell of burning fuel and the haunting silence that follows such a disaster. Back in England and across Europe, families are left waiting, unaware of the tragedy that has unfolded. News travels slowly, at first trickling in through official channels and news reports. The anguish of not knowing transforms into the grief of loss as confirmations are made. In the aftermath, an extensive investigation is launched. Aviation experts, engineers, and officials collaborate to piece together the sequence of events. The cockpit voice, recorder, and flight data. Recorder, often referred to as the black boxes, are recovered and analyzed meticulously. The findings reveal a combination of factors. The ambiguous instructions from air traffic control played a significant role. The controllers under pressure, and perhaps, assuming a level of familiarity from the pilots, did not provide the clarity needed in such a complex environment. Additionally, the pilots' misinterpretation of the holding pattern led them off the safe path. But there is more to it. The navigation aids in the area were inadequate for the demands placed upon them. The technology of the time lacked the advanced terrain awareness and warning systems that are standard in today's aircraft. This tragedy highlighted the gaps between human capabilities, technology, and procedural clarity. I see some of you are sharing thoughts in the chat about how communication is vital in aviation. Absolutely clear communication can be the difference between safety and disaster. It is a lesson that extends beyond aviation into our daily lives. This incident prompted significant changes in the aviation industry. Regulations were updated to ensure that holding patterns and approach procedures were standardized and clearly communicated. Air traffic controllers received enhanced training to provide unambiguous instructions, especially in regions with challenging terrain. Furthermore, the development and mandatory implementation of advanced ground proximity warning systems became a priority. These systems use GPS and a database of terrain to alert pilots if they are flying too close to obstacles. It is a technological leap that has since saved countless lives. Reflecting on this, it is astounding how much progress has been made in aviation safety. Yet it is sobering to consider that many of these advancements are born from the lessons of past tragedies. Now, I would like to pose a question to all of you. In an age where technology evolves rapidly, how do you think we can balance reliance on automated systems with the essential human element of judgment and decision-making? Feel free to share your thoughts. Your perspectives are invaluable. Reading through your comments, it is clear that many of you recognize the importance of ongoing training and the human ability to adapt in unexpected situations. Automation can greatly enhance safety, but it cannot replace the nuanced understanding and intuition that experienced professionals bring to critical moments. Returning to the families affected by the crash, their lives were irrevocably changed. The loss of loved ones left a void that could never be filled. Memorials were erected and anniversaries marked with solemn remembrance. Their stories remind us that behind every statistic are real people, parents, children, friends whose absence is deeply felt. Empathy is crucial when we discuss such events. It is easy to focus on the technical aspects, but we must not overlook the human cost. Each person on that flight had dreams, hopes, and a future that was cut short. As we analyze and learn, we honor their memory by striving to prevent similar tragedies. In the broader context, Daenerys, Flight 1008, serves as a case study in the importance of systemic improvements. It is not about assigning blame to individuals, but understanding how systems, protocols, and technologies must evolve together. Safety in aviation is a collective responsibility shared by pilots, controllers, engineers, and regulators. As we near the conclusion of our discussion, consider how this story resonates with challenges in other industries. Whether it is healthcare, transportation, or technology, the interplay between human factors and systems design is universal. Before we wrap up, I would like to ask one final question. What do you think are the key takeaways from the story of Flight 1008 that can be applied to our lives, even outside of aviation? How can we use these lessons to improve communication, safety, and collaboration in our own fields? Many of you mentioned the importance of clear communication, continuous learning, and the courage to question procedures when something does not seem right. These are principles that foster not only safety, but also innovation and trust in any environment. Furthermore, the development and mandatory implementation of advanced ground proximity warning systems became a priority. These systems use GPS and a database of terrain to alert pilots if they are flying too close to obstacles. It is a technological leap that has since saved countless lives. Reflecting on this, It is astounding how much progress has been made in aviation safety. Yet it is sobering to consider that many of these advancements are born from the lessons of past tragedies. Now, I would like to pose a question to all of you. In an age where technology evolves rapidly, how do you think we can balance reliance on automated systems with the essential human element of judgment and decision-making? Feel free to share your thoughts. Your perspectives are invaluable. Reading through your comments, it is clear that many of you recognize the importance of ongoing training and the human ability to adapt in unexpected situations. Automation can greatly enhance safety, but it cannot replace the nuanced understanding and intuition that experienced professionals bring to critical moments. Returning to the families affected by the crash, their lives were irrevocably changed. The loss of loved ones left a void that could never be filled. Memorials were erected and anniversaries marked with solemn remembrance. Their stories remind us that behind every statistic are real people, parents, children, friends whose absence is deeply felt. Empathy is crucial when we discuss such events. It is easy to focus on the technical aspects, but we must not overlook the human cost. Each person on that flight had dreams, hopes, and a future that was cut short. As we analyze and learn, we honor their memory by striving to prevent similar tragedies. In the broader context, Daenerys, Flight 1008, serves as a case study in the importance of systemic improvements. It is not about assigning blame to individuals, but understanding how systems, protocols, and technologies must evolve together. Safety in aviation is a collective responsibility shared by pilots, controllers, engineers, and regulators. As we near the conclusion of our discussion, consider how this story resonates with challenges in other industries. Whether it is healthcare, transportation, or technology, the interplay between human factors and systems design is universal. Before we wrap up, I would like to ask one final question. What do you think are the key takeaways from the story of Flight 1008 that can be applied to our lives, even outside of aviation? How can we use these lessons to improve communication, safety, and collaboration in our own fields? Many of you mentioned the importance of clear communication, continuous learning, and the courage to question procedures when something does not seem right. These are principles that foster not only safety, but also innovation and trust in any environment. In closing, the tragedy of Daenerys Flight 1008 reminds us of the importance of supporting those affected by aviation incidents. We encourage everyone to support the families and communities impacted by such events. Stay tuned, as we will soon discuss some of the most dangerous airports around the world. Today's live stream will be truly unique as we delve into a topic that is both fascinating and a bit mysterious. We'll be talking about the world's most dangerous airports. Did you know there are places where landing an airplane is like performing a real art? I'll tell you about these amazing locations and the challenges they pose to pilots. Buckle up, because we are embarking on a journey full of exciting stories and extraordinary views. Your comments and questions are very important to me, so feel free to share them during the stream. And if you like what we're doing, don't forget to leave a follow and a heart. It really means a lot and helps me bring you even better content. Stay with me. Let's embark on a journey through some of the world's most daunting airports, each presenting unique challenges that make every landing an adventure. We start with Lukla Airport in Nepal, often referred to as the gateway to Mount Everest. This airport is notoriously dangerous due to its extremely short runway, flanked by mountains. The skills required to navigate this airport have made it infamous among pilots globally. Moving from the high mountains, we descend to Princess Juliana International Airport in St. Martin, where planes famously skim over the heads of beachgoers. At Maho Beach, this thrilling proximity of aircraft to the beach creates a unique experience for tourists and an added challenge for pilots. Transitioning to the European mountains, Courchevel Airport in France features a short runway with a significant incline. Positioned in a ski resort, its snowy conditions require pilots to execute precise and controlled landings to ensure safety. Farther east, in the mountains of Bhutan, is Paro Airport, one of the world's most challenging airports to land at. Only a handful of pilots are certified to navigate its deep valley and sharp peaks, making every approach a meticulous test of skill and nerve. Heading to the Caribbean, Guancho-E Yarosquin Airport on Saba Island boasts one of the shortest commercial runways in the world. The limited runway length means that every takeoff and landing needs to be perfectly executed to avoid overshooting into the ocean. In Central America, Toncontín Airport in Honduras is known for its difficult approach and short runway surrounded by mountains. Pilots must maneuver through a tricky landscape to safely reach the runway, making it one of the most perilous airports in the region. Over in the Atlantic, Madeira Airport in Portugal features a runway built on giant pillars, with the ocean on one side and mountains on the other. This unusual construction adds to the complexity of landings, especially under windy conditions. Finally, at Barra Airport in Scotland, aircraft land on a sandy beach, making it the only airport in the world where scheduled flights are dependent on the tide. This unique aspect requires pilots to be highly adaptable and aware of the natural environment. Each of these airports presents a unique set of challenges, from natural obstacles to engineering marvels, proving that sometimes the journey is just as thrilling as the destination. And now, let us take a closer look at the first of these remarkable airports. Imagine this: a narrow strip of tarmac perched at the edge of a cliff high up in the remote mountains of Nepal, surrounded by peaks that seem to touch the sky. This is Lukla Airport, officially known as Tenzing Hillary Airport, named in honor of the first climbers to conquer Everest, Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. But it's more than just an airport. It's a passage, a gateway for adventurers from all over the world on their way to Mount Everest, the tallest mountain on Earth. And yet there's a darker side to its fame. This is one of the most dangerous airports in the world. Think of the sights and sounds you might encounter as you approach this place. First, the deep rhythmic thud of helicopter rotors fills the air, followed by the whistle of mountain winds cutting through the steep Himalayan peaks. And then suddenly, the sharp hum of a small airplane engine comes into focus, fighting to land on a strip that's only 527 meters long. Imagine that. Just about 5 Olympic-sized swimming pools laid into it. It's an unforgivingly short distance, especially when that runway is all you have to land, or lift a plane carrying dozens of people and all their gear. The locals don't see Lukla as just another airstrip, it's a lifeline. For some, it's a necessity, a vital connection to the outside world. But it's also a nerve-wracking place where you face the mountain long before you see it, and where the runway appears less like a safety net and more like a high-stakes dare. There's no radar guidance here, no control tower equipped with modern technology, only seasoned pilots who must rely on their instincts, experience, and nerves of steel to land in one of the most hostile environments an airport could ever exist in. Imagine yourself stepping off a plane, here surrounded by the vast Himalayas. How would you feel knowing that the only way out is to fly back from this same perilous runway? For many, that mix of thrill and fear is unforgettable. But for the locals, Lukla Airport is simply part of life. They see tourists and trekkers land here every day, some excited, some visibly tense. For them, this place is a familiar and yet relentless presence, a transit hub with as much threat as promise. Let's consider what the pilots are up against. When they approach Lukla, they're not flying into a welcoming open-air space. They're flying directly at a wall of rock. To land, they must navigate a precise route between peaks that reach dizzying heights. There is zero margin for error now. The runway begins with a sheer drop into the valley below, and it ends at the base of a steep mountain wall. There's no room for overshooting. A single mistake could mean crashing straight into the mountainside. For takeoffs, there's an added challenge. The runway slopes upward at a 12% incline. In almost any other airport, that kind of slope would be an alarming flaw. But here, it's the saving grace. The upward incline helps slow down planes that are landing and gives just enough push for takeoffs, making a difference. Between safety and catastrophe, it's an innovative adaptation, a fight to bend nature's limitations in order to function, albeit barely, as a transportation hub. Yet for all its engineering, this is not an airport for thrill-seeking tourists alone. For the people of Lukla, it's essential. Imagine living here, relying on this place as the main link to the outside world. Any shift in the weather could mean that Lifeline is cut off entirely, and it happens often. With Lukla's unpredictable weather, the airport can be shut down for days. As breathtaking as this airport is, its beauty is matched only by its dangers. Meet Captain Ang Norbu, a Nepalese pilot who has flown hundreds of flights to and from Lukla. He speaks of the airport with the respect of someone who understands its power, as if describing an unpredictable adversary who demands humility and vigilance. He recalls a time when a sudden gust of wind nearly pushed him off course just before landing. Mere few inches off could have been deadly. Here, even the tiniest miscalculation has consequences. But he recounts his story with a calmness that borders on reverence, saying we have to be prepared for the unexpected every single time. Then there are the trekkers who brave the flight in. Sarah, a climber from Canada, remembers her own descent into Lukla. She recalls, her heart pounding as the runway loomed in front of her. Her breath caught as they drew closer and closer to the mountain. It felt like the mountain was daring us, she said, and we had no choice but to accept. Her story, like that of so many others, is filled with this thrilling tension, the kind of exhilaration that only comes with brushing up against danger. It's not only the passengers and pilots, though, who live with this risk. The ground crew at Lukla, often locals from nearby villages, face the dangers just as much as those in the air. They've seen planes overshoot the runway, heard stories of accidents, and witnessed crashes firsthand. And yet they continue working with unwavering dedication. They're driven by a quiet resilience, understanding that their work helps sustain their community, providing access to essential supplies and resources. But not every story ends well. Over the years, Lukla has seen tragic accidents that serve as stark reminders of its dangers. One of the most heartbreaking was in 2008, when a small plane carrying 18 passengers crashed just before reaching the runway. Visibility had been low, and the aircraft hit a bank, resulting in the tragic loss of lives. Accidents like this cast a shadow over the airport, but they are also a wake-up call, reminding pilots and officials alike of the thin line between adventure and tragedy at this altitude. Pilots here are masters of composure. They learn quickly that emotions cannot cloud their actions in a place like Lukla. They must focus intensely on each second of the flight, each gust of wind, and each tilt of the plane. They cannot dwell on past accidents or mistakes. Their job demands that they be fully present. The mental resilience it takes to fly in and out of Lukla is something rare, a quiet courage that lets them face the mountain and meet it on its own terms time and again. Picture yourself standing on the edge of the runway on a cold morning. The air is thin and biting with the earthy scent of pine and rock filling your lungs. In the distance, you hear the sound of a small twin-engine plane approaching its engine, roaring in defiance of the steep climb ahead. You feel the vibration underfoot as it touches down its wheels, screeching on the tarmac, fighting to come to a full stop before the cliff's edge looms too close. The wind sharp and relentless slashes through the mountain, silence broken only by the distant chimes of prayer. Flags fluttering in nearby villages. Inside the plane, it's a different world. Imagine the hum of engines vibrating through the seats, the jolt of each tilt and turn, the sensation of the earth pressing back as the pilot accelerates down that angled strip of runway. Every muscle in your body feels the tension. In those few moments, it's as if even the mountain is holding its breath, waiting to see if you'll make it. With all these dangers and risks, Lukla Airport stands as both a testament to human ingenuity and a constant reminder of nature's dominance. For over half a century, it has served as the starting point for the journey to Everest, enabling climbers, trekkers, and explorers from across the globe to chase their dreams of reaching the world's highest peak. But more than that, it's a place where the people of Nepal, particularly those in Lukla and the Khumbu region, have managed to create a balance with the rugged environment that surrounds them. The locals who live and work around Lukla have a unique relationship with this place. They don't just survive here. They thrive adapting to the rhythms of this mountain life. Their resilience, their courage, and their quiet acceptance of both the beauty and danger of their environment are deeply woven into the story of Lukla. Every takeoff, every landing is a small victory over the unforgiving terrain. A tribute to the determination and adaptability of those who live and work in the shadow of the highest peaks in the world. And so, Lukla stands its airstrip like a scar etched into the side of the mountain, serving as both a pathway to dreams and a monument to the resilience of those who choose to confront it. Thank you for joining us on the remarkable journey to Lukla Airport. Now, let's transition to another unique and equally fascinating destination. We're heading to Princess Juliana Airport in St. Martin, famously known for planes flying incredibly low over the heads of beachgoers at Maho Beach. This spectacular phenomenon draws crowds of tourists eager to experience this extraordinary sight up close. Buckle up as we embark on the next exciting part of our adventure. Maho Beach, on the island of St. Martin, might look like any other. Caribbean paradise at first glance. White sand, turquoise, water-warm sun, and a relaxed atmosphere. But there's something unique about this place that sets it apart from any other beach in the world. Here, planes landing at the nearby Princess Juliana International Airport fly astonishingly low over the heads of beachgoers. The enormous machines seem close enough to touch, and you can feel the rush of their engines, and hear the thunderous roar as they pass overhead. This spectacle has turned Maho Beach into an iconic spot for tourists, photographers, and aviation enthusiasts, creating a rare combination of relaxation and adrenaline. The layout of Princess Juliana International Airport is what makes this experience possible. Situated on a narrow strip of land between Simpson Bay Lagoon and the open sea, the airport's runway stretches just a few meters from Maho Beach. Due to its relatively short length, pilots of large aircraft like Boeing 747s and Airbus A340s must begin their descent as close to the runway's edge as possible. This forces them to fly extraordinarily low over the beach, bringing their metal giants within mere meters of the heads of those on the sand. For many, it's an unforgettable thrill to feel the sheer power of the plane overhead. Hear the deafening sound, feel the wind whip around, and watch as its enormous shadow sweeps across the sand. The anticipation builds as beachgoers eagerly wait for the next plane to approach. Almost like a ceremony, you can feel the energy shift as people notice an aircraft in the distance. Cameras come out, faces turn skyward, and some brave souls inch closer to the runway's path, waiting to capture the perfect moment. There's a sense of collective excitement as the aircraft's shadow stretches across the beach, bringing a shared thrill that lingers long after the plane has landed. Yet this exhilarating experience is not without risk. The powerful jet blasts generated by large planes can easily knock people down, push them toward the water, or send them tumbling across the sand. There are warning signs along the fence that separates the beach from the airport, cautioning visitors to keep a safe distance and avoid standing directly in the jet blast zone. But for many, the lure of standing under a low-flying jet is simply too strong to resist. The adrenaline the sheer size of the aircraft, and the intense power it exudes all create an experience too captivating to ignore. It's thrilling, albeit a bit reckless, and there's something undeniable about standing in the face of such power, even if it comes with a hint of danger. For some, this experience is nothing short of unforgettable. Take Carlos, a traveler from Spain who came to St. Martin specifically for the thrill of witnessing these low-flying planes. I'd seen pictures and videos online, he says, but seeing it live is something else entirely. When the plane approached, my heart was racing. I could feel the vibrations on the ground and the wind against my skin. It felt like standing next to a living giant. and it's an experience I'll never forget. Then there's Julie, a tourist from France, who recalls her encounter with a massive Boeing 747. It was surreal, she says. The plane looked like it was about to touch me with its wings. The whole beach was in the shadow of its enormous frame, and when it passed, I felt this powerful gust and the vibrations in my bones. I was both in awe and a little scared at something that stays with you. Travelers who spent time on Maho Beach often describe it as a mix of excitement and apprehension. A place where nature and modern technology meet in an extraordinary, unexpected harmony. For the residents of St. Martin, however, the sight of low-flying planes is part of everyday life. The sound of jet engines overhead has become familiar, and the spectacle that amazes visitors is not for them. Simply a piece of the island's charm. Some locals watch the planes with a smile, amused by the excitement of tourists, and take pride in the fame. Their island has earned thanks to this unusual airport. For anyone who's ever stood on Maho Beach and felt the jet blast of a landing plane, it's a sensation like no other. Picture yourself there, standing on the warm sand as the engines approach, growing louder and louder, until the air itself seems to vibrate with energy. A shadow of a massive aircraft stretches across the beach, blocking the sun, and a sudden gust of wind whips through your hair, lifting grains of sand into the air. The moment is so intense that it feels almost elemental, as though you're face to face with a powerful force of nature and human engineering combined. Maho Beach isn't just a place to relax. It's a stage for unforgettable moments. Standing beneath a landing plane gives you a tangible connection to the marvel of flight and the audacity of human achievement. There on the edge of a runway in a tropical beach, the encounter between humanity and technology takes on a whole new profoundly sensory meaning. Thank you for being with us as we explored Maho Beach. If you're enjoying our series on the world's unique airports, remember, you can support us. Just leave a like, share our live, and click on the gift icon to send a gift. Your support is incredibly important to us. It helps us continue these amazing journeys and share them with all of you. Now, let's move on to another thrilling destination. Next up is Courchevel Airport in France, famous for its short runway with a steep incline, posing challenges for both landing and takeoff in mountainous terrain. More thrills and breathtaking views await, so buckle up as we take off to the next chapter of our adventure. As we arrive in the French Alps, we're stepping into a different world, one of snow-capped peaks, deep valleys, and sheer rugged beauty. And nestled in this breathtaking landscape at an elevation of over 6,500 feet lies Courchevel Altiport. This is no ordinary airport. In fact, it's as much an adrenaline-pumping experience as it is a place to land. With a runway just 537 meters long and an incredible 18.6% gradient, Courchevel's runway slopes upward, challenging pilots in ways that most airstrips never would. Imagine you're a pilot approaching Courchevel for the first time. You see the runway in the distance, huh? Thin, upward-sloping strip of tarmac carved out of the mountainside. Below it, a drop-off into the valley, and above towering peaks that don't allow for a second chance. There's little room for error here. This isn't just about skill. It's about courage and calculated precision. Courchevel Altiport opened in the early 1960s as part of the development of Courchevel as a skiing and alpine sports haven. But creating an airport in such a dramatic location wasn't a simple feat. Engineers and visionaries saw an opportunity to bring travelers directly to the heart of the French Alps. Yet they faced a huge challenge. How to construct an airstrip on the side of a mountain, where land is limited, slopes are steep, and conditions are harsh. The answer lay in harnessing the natural terrain itself. By building the runway with an incline, the engineers created a solution that would both slow down planes landing and help them take off in a shorter space. But this innovative design came with its own set of challenges. The steep incline requires a unique technique. Planes land uphill to decelerate more quickly, and take off downhill to gain the necessary speed to clear the peaks. But let's dive into what that experience is really like. Imagine the sensation of landing at Courchevel. The cold mountain air, The intense focus as you descend, the sound of the engines shifting in pitch, and the sharp incline rising toward you as you prepare to touch down. Pilots describe the experience as almost surreal. There's a sense of quiet tension, a silence in the cabin as everyone holds their breath, waiting for the wheels to make contact. It's a delicate balance between technical skill and instinct to dance with gravity and the mountain itself. Landing at Courchevel is restricted to specially trained pilots with Alpine Airport certifications. The intense training required to land here isn't just about technical flying. It's about mental resilience and handling high-stress situations. These pilots learn to adapt quickly, responding to unpredictable winds, sudden weather changes, and the looming peaks. They become intimately familiar with the rhythms of the mountain. One story from Courchevel that's become part of local lore involves a seasoned pilot named Mark. Known for his skill and experience, Mark had flown into Courchevel many times, and each landing added to his confidence. One winter morning, however, things didn't go as planned. A sudden crosswind caught his plane just as he was about to touch down, pushing him perilously close to the runway's edge. With a quick adjustment and a steady hand, Mark managed to bring the plane safely onto the strip. He later described it as the closest he'd come to disaster, a vivid reminder of the mountain's unpredictable power and why even seasoned pilots respect Courchevel. The mountain terrain isn't just a challenge for pilots. It's also a challenge for engineers and ground crew who work year-round to keep the runway clear and safe. Snowfall is frequent, and the high elevation means colder temperatures and more extreme conditions than typical airports. During winter, teams work tirelessly to ensure the runway is navigable, often working in whiteout conditions with snowplows and dicing equipment. It's an ongoing battle between human determination and nature's relentless force. The runway's uphill design is a marvel of functional engineering. To understand how it works, imagine running up a steep hill. Each step requires more energy than a flat surface, but the incline slows you down naturally. This is exactly what happens to planes landing at Courchevel. The uphill gradient acts like a brake, using the mountain's incline to help bring the plane to a stop. It's brilliant, but it also means pilots must come in at just the right angle and speed. Too fast, and they could overshoot. Too slow, and they risk a hard landing. For takeoff, the process is equally dramatic, but in reverse. The plane is positioned at the top of the incline, and pilots need to accelerate downhill, gathering speed quickly to reach liftoff before they run out of runway. There's no room for hesitation, no room for mistakes. Pilots say that this takeoff requires them to almost lean into the downward, slope-building momentum and trusting their skills as they rush toward the edge of the runway with the valley below. It's not hard to see why Courchevel Airport is considered one of the world's most dangerous airports. And yet, this danger is precisely what attracts aviation enthusiasts and adventure seekers from around the world. They come not only to witness the thrill of the landings and takeoffs, but to experience the beauty of the Alps up close. Courchevel's airport has become something of a rite of passage for pilots, a mark of honor in the aviation community. Only a few airports globally offer such unique, adrenaline-pumping experiences, places where pilots are tested in both skill and nerve. The airstrip's unique position also provides some of the most breathtaking views in aviation. Snowy peaks, stretching as far as the eye can see, the glittering slopes of Courchevel's famous ski resorts, and the vastness of the Alpine range. So let me ask you this. If you had the chance, would you dare to fly into Courchevel? Would you embrace the thrill, or would you prefer to stay on safer ground? Let us know what you think. Are you up for the adventure? Or do you prefer watching from a distance? Courchevel Airport continues to serve as a gateway to adventure, where every landing and takeoff is a blend of skill, courage, and respect for the mountain. For those who experience it, it's not just an airport. It's a testament to human resilience, a reminder of our desire to conquer the extreme and push boundaries. And so, as we wrap up our journey to this incredible alpine destination, let's take a moment to appreciate not only the pilots and engineers, who make this possible, but also the majesty of the mountains that both challenge and inspire us. Courchevel, Altiport remains a place of wonder, unique intersection between nature and aviation, a place where every flight is a story and every landing a small triumph over the forces of nature. As we leave Courchevel behind in our minds, let's reflect on the sheer magnitude of what it represents not just an airport, but a symbol of human ingenuity and the relentless pursuit of adventure in the face of nature's most intimidating landscapes. In many ways, Courchevel is more than an airstrip. It's a place where limits are tested and where each landing is a testimony to the pilot's mastery and the timeless allure of the mountains. But why does this place hold such an appeal? Perhaps it's because Courchevel speaks to something primal within USA. Desire to confront the unknown, to embrace both beauty and danger, and to test ourselves against forces much larger than we are. It's the same drive that has always pushed humans to explore the highest mountains, the deepest oceans, and the most remote corners of the planet. Courchevel is one of those rare places where the spirit of exploration meets the precision of technology and the courage of the human heart. And the legacy of Courchevel continues to inspire those who come here. New generations of pilots seek the qualifications required to land here, knowing that every descent onto that sloped runway will bring a new thrill and a profound respect for the mountain. The airport has become a training ground of sorts for extreme aviation, a place where only the most skilled are permitted to land, and where every takeoff is a personal victory. This rugged landscape isn't just beautiful, it's also powerful and unpredictable. The mountains demand respect, and every pilot who flies into Courchevel knows this. Weather can change in an instant. Clear skies can give way to sudden snow flurries, and strong winds can arise out of nowhere. Pilots must remain vigilant, ready to adjust course or speed at a moment's notice. This constant vigilance sharpens their skills, making Courchevel not just a destination, but a rite of passage, a proving ground that leaves an indelible mark on all who experience it. For travelers who arrive here, there's a sense of awe in knowing what it took to get there. Those who watch from the ground can only imagine the tension and focus in the cockpit, the delicate dance of descent as the plane aligns with the narrow runway. As the wheels touch down, passengers feel a collective sigh of relief, a shared thrill of having conquered something rare and challenging. And when they look out of the plane windows, they're greeted by a view like no other, a panorama of peaks and valleys, with snow-dusted forests stretching out below. But Courchevel is not just about the adrenaline rush. It's also about the tranquility and beauty that surrounds this high-altitude landing strip. Once the challenge of landing is over, travelers step out into a winter wonderland where the crisp mountain air fills their lungs and the silence of the mountains wraps around them. Here the rush of arrival gives way to a sense of peace, a feeling of being far from the everyday world and deeply connected to the wilderness. This airport has become a unique part of Courchevel's identity, attracting not only aviation enthusiasts, but also skiers, hikers, and nature lovers from around the world. People come to ski on some of the best slopes in Europe, to explore charming alpine villages, and to take in views that stretch for miles. The airport is just one part of this magical place, a place where people come to escape, to experience something new, and to feel the exhilaration that only the mountains can offer. And so, as we leave Courchevel Altiport in our journey, we're reminded of the incredible places around the world where the line between humanity and nature blurs, where mountains, oceans, and skies test us, inspire us, and remind us of the strength we carry within. Courchevel is a testament to our desire to explore the unexplored, to face the fearsome beauty of the world, and to leave behind footprints, or in this case, tire marks in places most will never dare to go. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Thank you all for joining us on this high-altitude journey through Courchevel's incredible airport. It's been thrilling to explore these peaks together, and your support truly makes a difference. If you're enjoying our deep dives into the world's most unique and challenging airports, remember your likes, shares, and gifts help us keep these adventures going. So, Tap that like button, share the live, and feel free to send a gift if you'd like to support our journey. Every little bit goes a long way in bringing you more incredible stories from around the world. Now, let's set our course for the Himalayas and explore a place known as one of the most challenging airports on Earth, Paro Airport in Bhutan. This airstrip lies nestled in a deep valley, surrounded by towering sharp peaks. Only a handful of pilots are certified to land here. It's a place where flying is not just a skill, but an art, and every landing is an act of mastery. Imagine yourself flying over the rugged terrain of the Himalayas. Snow-covered peaks rise like guardians, fierce and silent as your plane descends into one of the most remote valleys in the world. At 7,300 feet above sea level, Paro Airport rests in a cradle of mountains with cliffs and ridges forming a natural fortress around it. As you peer out the window, the mountains seem almost close enough to touch, and you realize that this landing will be anything but ordinary. To set the stage, consider this Paro Airport is so challenging that only about a dozen pilots in the world are qualified to land here. The reason the airstrip is just 6,500 feet long and surrounded by sharp, jagged peaks that reach up to 18,000 feet. There's no instrument landing system. Instead, pilots rely entirely on their skill, judgment, and visual landmarks as they descend into this deep valley. Every approach into Paro requires absolute precision, courage, and an understanding of the mountains themselves. The story of Paro Airport begins with Bhutan itself, a small, peaceful kingdom that values harmony with nature. For years, Bhutan remained a hidden treasure, inaccessible by land or air. But in the 1960s, as the kingdom opened, its borders leaders saw the need for an airport to connect Bhutan to the world. Constructing one in the Himalayas, however, was a feat of its own. Engineers and planners had to find a spot that was flat enough for a runway, but still protected by the natural contours of the land. They chose Paro, a valley surrounded by mountains, but with just enough open space to make landing possible, though barely. And so, in 1983, Paro Airport was born. But even after it was built, only a few dared to land there. To this day, only specially trained pilots are allowed to fly into Paro, earning a reputation as some of the world's finest aviators. One pilot who frequently flew into Paro is Captain Karma, known for his calm demeanor and sharp skills. He has landed in Paro over 100 times, but each approach is just as intense as the first. One particular landing stands out in his memory. A windy day when the mountains seemed to close in even tighter around him. As he began his descent, he noticed a slight shift in the wind, a crosswind that could push the plane dangerously close to the ridges. With quick thinking and steady hands, Captain Karma adjusted his course. Picture this moment. He's navigating a narrow path, surrounded by mountains that leave no margin for error. The valley is filled with shifting shadows from the peaks, and the wind creates unpredictable currents. But Karma is focused, guiding the plane with careful precision, each slight movement bringing him closer to the runway. Finally, as the plane cleared the last ridge, the runway appeared below like a ribbon stretched across the valley floor. Karma gently lowered the plane, and as the wheels touched down, he let out a deep breath. He later described the experience as a dance with the mountains, a reminder of how each landing at Paro is a blend of skill, respect, and trust in one's own abilities. Let me ask you all, how would you feel in Captain Karma's shoes, facing down the challenge of navigating this rugged terrain? Have you ever had to rely completely on your skills in a situation where there was no room for mistakes? Share your thoughts, and let's see how many of us have faced our own mountains in life. At Paro, there's no radar to guide planes in. Pilots rely on their eyes and a series of well-known landmarks to navigate the descent. Imagine it's a clear day, and you're flying into Paro. The pilot begins the descent, tilting the plane gently down as they follow the river winding through the valley. You see patches of forest and ancient monasteries perched on cliffs like something out of a dream. This visual approach means the pilot must recognize every landmark that twists in the river. The positions of the peaks and use these to guide the plane. It's a technique that requires intense training and often years of experience. For passengers, it's a breathtaking, Sometimes, nerve-wracking experience as they watch the ground and mountains pass by at close range. Imagine the sensory experience. The hum of the engines, the gentle rumble of turbulence, and the breathtaking scenery just outside the window. There's a mix of awe and tension, a feeling that you're part of something extraordinary and slightly dangerous. One of the most dramatic stories from Poirot involved a pilot who encountered unexpected turbulence during his approach. Just as he was lining up with the valley at downdraft, pulled the plane lower than anticipated. For a split second, it felt as if the mountains were looming too close, like walls closing in. But with a calm yet firm adjustment, he managed to lift the plane back on course, skimming past the ridges with a hair's breadth to spare. The passengers were silent, some gripping their seats until they felt the relief of touchdown. Afterward, the pilot spoke about the moment, not as one of fear, but of focus. He described how his training kicked in, blocking out the sense of danger, so he could react instinctively. This is the reality of Poirot. Every landing is a mental exercise, where nerves are held in check and every movement is deliberate. What makes Poirot unique isn't just the technical challenge. It's the scenery, the feeling of arriving somewhere almost mythical. The valley around Poirot is home to some of Bhutan's most sacred sites, including the famous Tiger's Nest Monastery, which clings to a cliffside like a jewel in the mountains. As passengers disembark, they step into a world where spirituality and nature are intertwined, a place that feels untouched by time. For those arriving, the airport is the first glimpse of Bhutan's majestic landscape, and it leaves a lasting impression. It's not uncommon for travelers to spend a moment in awe as they take in the valley with the peaks towering above and the mist hanging in the air. This is more than an arrival. It's an entry into a realm where the ancient and the modern coexist, where the landscape commands respect and admiration. Today, Poirot remains one of the most challenging airports in the world, and a landing here is considered a badge of honor among pilots. Those who are certified to fly into Poirot join an elite group recognized for their skill and bravery. It's a place where flying transcends mere transportation. It becomes an act of art, a display of trust between the pilot, the plane, and the mountains. Poirot Airport, like Courchevel, is a reminder of our capacity to navigate the extremes of our world, to find ways to bridge distances and connect people, even in the most isolated places. It's an inspiring example of human ingenuity and a celebration of the beauty and power of nature. Thank you for being part of this journey through the valleys and peaks of Poirot. If you've enjoyed this adventure, remember that every like, share, and gift you send helps us continue exploring these incredible destinations with you. Your support makes it possible to bring these stories to life. So keep tapping those hearts and sharing this experience. And now, as we wrap up our journey to Poirot, stay tuned, because there are even more extraordinary places waiting for us just over the horizon. Before we venture into the treacherous landscapes of Honduras, let's make a brief stop at an extraordinary location that seems to defy the norms of aviation. Welcome to Juancho y Orozcoen Airport on the tiny Caribbean island of Saba, part of the Netherlands. This airport is renowned not for its bustling traffic or sprawling terminals, but for having one of the shortest commercial runways in the world. Imagine a mere 400 meters of runway, perched on a cliff, surrounded by steep drops into the ocean on one side and rugged hills on the other. The very sight of it challenges one's understanding of what is possible with aviation. Pilots who dare to land here undergo rigorous training to master the art of touching down in a space that leaves no room for error. The approach, often buffeted by strong sea winds, requires a precision and calm under pressure that few other destinations demand. This tiny strip of asphalt is not just a runway. It is a gateway to an untouched paradise, revered by adventurous travelers and locals alike. Every landing and takeoff here is a ballet of skill and nerve, watched by the island's residents with a mix of pride and routine nonchalance. Have you ever experienced a journey where the arrival was as thrilling as the destination itself? What was it like? And how did it change your perspective on the power and skill involved in flying? Wancho E. Irosquin Airport serves as a vivid reminder that sometimes the most memorable adventures are not defined by the length of the journey, but by the courage required to make it. As we prepare to shift our attention to the challenging airport in Honduras, let's carry with us the spirit of adventure and the awe-inspiring capabilities of those who navigate the skies. How do you think such challenging airports affect the communities they serve? What stories might emerge from such unique intersections of geography and human endeavor? Imagine, if you will, a theater set amidst towering peaks, where the runway acts as a stage for a high-stakes drama that unfolds with each arriving and departing flight. Here the plot thickens with the airport's notorious short runway, surrounded by steep mountains that loom like silent giants. Pilots must execute a sharp, quick descent, akin to threading a needle with an aircraft. Have any of you ever experienced a landing or takeoff that felt more like a roller coaster ride? Feel free to share your stories in the comments. This airport's narrative is not just about the geographical and technical challenges. It's deeply human. Each flight here tells a story of pilots who, with years of experience and focus, navigate through this daunting path, their skills tested to the limits. I wonder how many of you can relate to facing a challenge where there's little room for error. What was it like, and how did you manage? Let's delve deeper into a specific incident that vividly captures the essence of S-dramatic flair. Picture this. A commercial plane, packed with passengers, approaches the runway. The weather, unpredictable as always, adds an extra layer of suspense with gusty winds. The plane descends, the mountainside alarmingly close to the wings. As the tires finally screech against the tarmac, a collective sigh of relief is breathed. This moment of triumph, however, is not just about avoiding physical obstacles. It's a profound testament to human resilience and capability. Transitioning to another layer of this narrative, let's explore the sensory overload that accompanies a landing and the roar of the engines battling the wind, the scent of damp earth as rain clouds hover, the palpable tension among passengers, a symphony of human senses and machine, playing out in real time. What's the most intense sensory experience you've ever had while traveling? Share your thoughts, and let's compare notes. In weaving this tale, we must also acknowledge the emotional landscape. The joy, relief, and sometimes sorrow encountered at this airport are a reminder of the stakes involved in each journey. Managing these emotions, both as a narrator and a listener, is crucial. It's about finding balance, ensuring the story is told with empathy and respect for those who live it daily. As we reflect on the narrative of Airport, it's evident that this is more than just a tale of an airport. It's a story about the limits of human endeavor, the beauty of precision under pressure, and the collective breaths held and released in the cabins of countless aircraft. It challenges us to think about our own limits. How do we handle pressure? How do we prepare for the unexpected turns in our own life's journeys? In closing, the story of Airport serves as a powerful metaphor for life's complexities and how we navigate them as we continue our exploration of the world's most daunting airports. Let's keep these themes in mind, drawing parallels to our own experiences and learning from the incredible stories of those who traverse these challenging skies. As we ascend from the dramatic peaks and thrilling tales of let's glide across the ocean to a scene that contrasts starkly with the rugged mountainous landscapes we've navigated, our journey takes us to a quaint, picturesque setting, where the runway is not paved with asphalt, but with sand and tiles. Welcome to Barra Airport in Scotland, a place where the harmony between nature and aviation creates a ballet of landings and takeoffs, dictated by the rhythmic pulse of the sea. Imagine an airport where the schedule is married to the rhythm of the tides. Barra Airport is unique in the truest sense of the word, as it is one of the only airports in the world where flights are at the mercy of the tidal patterns. As the tide recedes, the runway emerges from beneath the waves, a strip of wet sand prepared to support the weight of incoming aircraft, Can you think of any other places where nature plays such a critical role in everyday activities? How does this compare to your own experiences with nature's unpredictability? This intertwining of natural forces and aviation at Barra brings a rich tapestry of stories. Picture this, a family returning home, watching the coastline approach. Their flight timed perfectly, with the tide to ensure a safe landing on the beach. Their relief and joy upon touching down safely is a shared emotion among all who arrive here, a testament to the unique challenges they face. Have you ever had a journey where the landscape itself was a participant in your story, delving deeper into the sensory experience of landing at Barra? The first thing that strikes you is the sound, the rush of the sea, the cry of gulls circling overhead, the crunch of sand under the wheels. It's a symphony of natural sounds mixed with the mechanical, a reminder of the delicate balance between human endeavors and the natural world. What are some of the most memorable sounds you've encountered in your travels? This narrative of Barra is not just about the unusual runway or the scenic landings, but about the community that lives with this unique airport. The locals have a deep connection with this place, where the rhythm of the sea dictates not just the coming and going of planes, but also the pace of life. This relationship between the people and their environment is a powerful story of adaptation and resilience. How does your community adapt to its environmental conditions? In telling the story of Barra Airport, we see a vivid example of how human ingenuity and natural forces can coexist in harmony. It's a dance of timing and precision, where the stakes are high, and the runway might just disappear beneath the waves if timed incorrectly. As we wrap up our visit to Barra, let's reflect on the broader themes of our discussions. How do we adapt our lives to coexist with the grandeur and unpredictability of nature? What can we learn from this tiny airport on a sandy beach about resilience and living in sync with the environment? Barra Airport, with its beach runway, opens up a broader conversation about our places in the world and how we navigate the challenges posed by our environments. As we continue our journey exploring the world's most unusual airports, let's carry with us the lessons from Barra about resilience, adaptability, and the awe-inspiring interplay between human ambition and the natural world. As the tide ebbs in Barra, leaving behind the serene dance of nature and aviation, we cast our eyes towards a marvel of engineering nestled in the rugged terrains of the Atlantic. Welcome to Madeira Airport in Portugal, a striking juxtaposition to our previous seaside runway, where the challenge isn't just nature, but how to conquer it with human ingenuity. In the heart of Madeira, engineers faced a dilemma as daunting as the cliffs themselves. How to extend an airport runway in a place where the mountainous landscape meets the vast ocean. The solution was as dramatic as the setting a runway supported by giant pillars, a sight that could easily belong in a scene from a futuristic film. Have you ever witnessed engineering that seems to defy nature? What was it? And what emotions did it evoke in you? As we delve into the narrative of Madeira Airport, let us explore a moment that truly defines its essence. Picture this: a stormy day where the winds sweep fiercely across the runway. A plane descends, seemingly hanging between the sea on one side and cliffs on the other. The passengers hold their breath, entrusting their safety to the colossal pillars that elevate the runway above the perilous drop. The touchstone is a triumphant defiance of nature's challenges, a moment of human victory that is both awe-inspiring and humbling. Does this evoke memories of times when you felt both the fear and thrill of confronting nature's immense power? The sensory experience of landing at Madeira is palpable. The salty spray of the ocean, the howling wind against the plane. The concrete beneath that resonates with every touchdown. It's a theater of human achievement and natural forces playing out in real time. What are the most intense environmental conditions you've ever experienced, and how did they shape your perception of human capability and resilience? The story of Madeira Airport is not merely about overcoming geographical hurdles. It's about the symbiosis between human creativity and the raw, untamed forces of nature. This narrative is steeped in the community's pride and the collective breaths of passengers who traverse this architectural marvel. As we engage with this story, I invite you to share how do you relate to this interplay of nature and human endeavor. What stories of architectural triumph resonate with you? In telling the tale of Madeira Airport, we touch on themes of innovation, courage, and the eternal dialogue between earth and sky. This story challenges us to reflect on our own interactions with the environment. How do we balance the need for development with respect for the natural world around us? As we wrap up our exploration of Madeira Airport, it becomes clear that this is more than just a story about a place. It's about our collective capacity to envision, to build, and to adapt. Each flight that lands on this extraordinary runway carries stories of people who dare to reach for the skies while firmly rooted in the ground. Let's carry forward this narrative of innovation and resilience as we continue to explore more of the world's most intriguing airports. How does this story inspire you to think about your own boundaries and the lengths you might go to overcome them? Thank you for joining me on this captivating journey through the world's most challenging and unique airports. Each story was a testament to human ingenuity and resilience, filled with challenges, innovations, and adaptations. Your comments and engagement in the discussion bring immense value and inspire further exploration. I hope these stories about airports, which seem to stretch the limits of possibility, have inspired you just as much as they have inspired me. Now, shifting our focus, let us move to a darker chapter in the history of aviation. We'll discuss the Tenerife disaster, a somber reminder of the consequences that human error and unfortunate circumstances can bring. On the foggy afternoon of March 27, 1977, the runway of Los Rodeos Airport on Tenerife became the stage for the deadliest aviation disaster in history. Two Boeing 747s, one belonging to KLM and the other to Pan Am, collided on the runway, claiming 583 lives. This tragic event not only shook the world, but also became a pivotal moment that redefined pathways in aviation safety management. But what exactly happened on that fateful day? How could such a collision occur on the ground? We'll trace the decisions leading up to the disaster, from a series of unfortunate errors amid foggy chaos, through communication misunderstandings, to the tragic finale. Could this have been avoided? What lessons can we draw from this tragic event? I invite you to continue the conversation and reflection. What are your thoughts on the role that safety procedures and communication play in preventing such tragedies? What do you think are the most important lessons to be learned from this tragedy to avoid similar events in the future? Though this event is painful, it is an important chapter in our ongoing quest for perfection and safety in aviation. Let the past teach us how to face the future with greater wisdom and caution. I look forward to your thoughts and comments as we continue this important discussion. Imagine you're in a place where the air itself feels heavy pressing down, with a sense of tension that you can almost taste. Picture a runway, quiet yet brimming with invisible energy, surrounded by rugged mountains and thick rolling clouds. The place I'm describing is Los Rodeos Airport, set atop the highlands of Tenerife, the largest of Spain's Canary Islands. In the 1970s, this airport was not much to look at by today's standards. Modest facilities, limited infrastructure, but even so, it stood in a breathtaking spot where the ocean breeze collided with the rugged landscape, creating an unpredictable climate that sometimes left even the most experienced pilots on edge. And one such day in 1977, this quiet airport was about to become the stage for an unimaginable disaster. Tenerife is known for its diverse landscapes and breathtaking volcanic terrain, but its beauty comes with a price. The island's high elevation and its location on the Atlantic Ocean exposed it to rapidly shifting weather conditions. One moment the sky might be clear, allowing sunlight to cast shadows on the tarmac, and the next, dense fog rolls in, obscuring the mountains and the runway itself. Imagine trying to navigate an airport where you can't see more than a few meters ahead. where the ground below blends into the misty surroundings. That was Los Rodeos, a beautiful yet unpredictable place for any pilot or air traffic controller. On March 27, 1977, Los Rodeos was never meant to host as much traffic as it did that day. To set the scene, Spain in the late 1970s was a country emerging from decades of dictatorship under Francisco Franco. The political landscape was fragile in Spain, was grappling with regional tensions and separatist movements, especially from the Basque region. That Sunday, just before noon, a bomb exploded in a nearby airport on the Canary island of Gran Canaria. It wasn't a random act of violence. It was a calculated move by a terrorist group seeking to disrupt air travel. Suddenly, Gran Canaria was shut down, and planes in the region were diverted to Tenerife, specifically to Los Rodeos Airport. The airport wasn't equipped to handle such a massive influx of planes. Imagine a single runway, not nearly enough for the large number of flights landing unexpectedly. The tarmac became cluttered with jets, large and small, parked wherever they could fit. Los Rodeos wasn't built to accommodate this kind of traffic, and the taxiways were soon congested, leaving only one path open for both taking off and landing. This created a logistical nightmare for air traffic controllers, who were working in a control tower with limited equipment and limited visibility, even on a clear day. Picture the scene. Jets from all over Europe filled with passengers on their way to sunny vacations, all grounded unexpectedly. Some passengers disembarked for fresh air and a chance to stretch their legs, unaware of the chaos brewing. Inside the cramped, busy control tower, the pressure was mounting. The controllers at Los Rodeos found themselves coordinating flights with a workload that would have been challenging even for a more modern, better-equipped airport. And then, as if the situation wasn't challenging enough, the weather turned. The fog rolled in slowly at first, but soon it was thick like a blanket that erased everything in sight. Imagine looking out from the control tower, seeing the gray mist engulfing everything, reducing visibility to almost nothing. For anyone on the ground, the world became a blur. For pilots, the runway a long, narrow strip amidst a sea of mist became a guessing game, a challenge of nerves and precision. This was the situation that set the stage for what would become the deadliest aviation accident in history. Now let's think about the people involved. Pilots from two of the largest airlines at the time, KLM and Pan Am, were grounded, frustrated, and tense. These weren't just any pilots. They were some of the most experienced flying the world's largest commercial aircraft. Boeing 740s. These planes were technological marvels, giants of the sky, but they were also a handful on the ground. Navigating such massive machines on a small, congested runway like the one at Los Rodeos added a new layer of complexity. Can you imagine being in that cockpit, feeling the tension rise with every minute of delay, all while dealing with the fog that wrapped around the airport like an invisible wall? As they waited, the pilots and crew members communicated with each other and with air traffic control. But in that high-stress environment, with radio channels congested and the weather growing worse, miscommunication became almost inevitable. Let's pause here for a moment. Think about how easy it is to misunderstand someone over the phone when there's background noise, and you're only catching every other word. Now multiply that by the stress of piloting a 747, and you'll begin to understand the intensity of that moment. It's almost eerie, but looking back, you can sense that each little issue, each miscommunication, each delay was leading towards something larger. Here's a question for you all. Have you ever been in a situation where small things kept going wrong and you could feel that something big was about to happen? This moment at Los Rodeos was exactly that, a slow buildup of tension, an accumulation of tiny errors and missed signals, all converging on a runway hidden beneath layers of fog. By now, the afternoon had stretched on, and each plane's crew was eager to get their passengers to their destinations. Every delay, every moment in that thick gray mist added to the stress. The crew of the KLM plane decided to refuel during the wait, aiming to save time. once they got clearance to take off for Grand Canal. But that decision would have a heavy consequence. The added fuel increased the plane's weight, affecting how much runway would be needed for a safe takeoff. Meanwhile, the Pan Am crew waited patiently, stranded in their plane amidst the congestion on the runway. You might think that with so many planes grounded, communication would be clear and coordinated. But instead, it was chaotic. Radio messages overlapped, and multiple conversations happened simultaneously. Imagine trying to navigate a massive jet with unclear instructions, knowing that other planes were just out of sight in the fog. This setting, the isolated airports, the heavy fog, the sense of growing frustration, and the tension in the airfields, almost like the backdrop of a suspense thriller. But this was real, with real people's lives hanging in the balance. Each second that passed brought the situation closer to a catastrophic turning point. Yet, none of the people involved could fully grasp the danger unfolding. What's chilling is that all the pilots and the control tower staff had the best intentions. They were all experienced professionals, but the atmosphere, the rush, and the rising frustration made for a dangerous cocktail. Every detail, every choice would soon play a role in what was about to happen. As we delve deeper into this story, ask yourself, how often do we underestimate the power of timing, of tiny choices that seem insignificant at the moment? Here in this fog-drenched airport, those small choices and split-second decisions would become monumental. The isolated location of Los Rodeos, the fog, the overcrowded tarmac. The miscommunications, each element was a piece of a larger puzzle. A tragic alignment of circumstances that would soon collide in a way no one could have foreseen. In that fog-drenched silence at Los Rodeos Airport, everything seemed to hover on the edge like the held breath before a storm. Every tiny detail, every choice in those final minutes would become critical land. Yet few people realized just how close disaster was. There was a certain weight to the atmosphere, as if everyone, the pilots, the crew, the air traffic controllers, could feel something off a hidden tension building just beneath the surface. The passengers, completely unaware, settled back into their seats, perhaps glancing out of the fogged-up windows with little idea of the high-stakes pressure surrounding them. This atmosphere of anticipation could have felt like a thriller unfolding a movie, where every misstep leads you closer to a deadly climax. But for those involved, this was no story. It was reality, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Imagine the control tower, the unseen eye over the fog, where the air traffic controllers struggled to guide the planes below without a clear view. Imagine the pilots each waiting for their chance to leave, growing tenser with every passing minute. And within that fog, the smallest error, the slightest miscommunication was like playing with fire. As the control tower juggled the unexpectedly heavy traffic, the pilots of both KLM and Pan Am aircraft were waiting anxiously to proceed. The fog was thickening, visibility was dropping, and the pressure was mounting. Pilots and crew members tuned to their radios to hear clearance instructions each second, feeling like an eternity. Communication was crucial, but it was also becoming dangerously fragile, like a delicate wire pulled too tight. In an environment as complex and tense as this clear, exact language was everything. A single word, misplaced a moment of hesitation, could throw everything into chaos. And that's exactly what happened. There was a moment, an ultra-brief exchange where a fatal misunderstanding began to take shape. It was a moment layered with assumptions, with guesses, with mounting frustration, and urgency that blurred the sharp edges of caution. The captain of the KLM flight, feeling the weight of delays and anxious to take off, communicated with his crew, and with the control tower intent on getting clearance. But in the foggy chaos of that crowded runway, a fatal misunderstanding occurred. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt the pressure to act where hesitation feels like a mistake, and speed is the only option? This was one of those moments, a scenario that, in retrospect, feels chilling. It was a moment where urgency won over caution and the seeds of tragedy were sown. As the KLM captain, one of the most experienced and respected pilots of his time, pushed forward, he thought he had clearance to take off. His crew, perhaps equally anxious, equally tense, trusted his decision. But in the shadowy world of radio communication buried under layers of fog and static, a crucial message was missed. The Pan Am flights stranded on the same runway hadn't moved. They were still there, hidden in the thick gray mist. One plane was waiting, the other was readying for takeoff. The stage was set, and all it took was one small, tragic misunderstanding. Imagine yourself in that cockpit, hearing static-filled voices, feeling the vibration of the engines. The KLM crew certain they were clear, prepared for takeoff. Their plane inching forward along the same runway as the Pan Am flight. In the fog, they couldn't see each other. They couldn't see anything beyond a few feet, illuminated by their own lights. The only connection between them was through voices on the radio, faint and intermittent, competing with the roar of engines and the hum of equipment. Each pilot heard only fragments, partial words. They were alone, each in their cockpit, yet bound by invisible threads of communication. That had become dangerously tangled. As the KLM plane advanced, a chilling realization was dawning in the control tower. Something was off. A sense of disconnect, a gap in understanding that once seen couldn't be unseen. But in that instant, it was already too late. The fog obscured everything, hiding both planes from view. Communication crackled across. The radio, but clarity had slipped through their grasp. Those moments stretched, expanded, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, just waiting for one final irrevocable moment. And then the inevitable happened. The KLM captain, with the weight of delays and frustrations on his shoulders, began his takeoff roll. Can you imagine the tension in that cockpit? The rumble beneath them as the engines roared to life. The sensation of moving, accelerating down the runway, piercing the fog that cloaked the airfield. For him, it was a moment of release, a chance to finally move, to cut through the gray mist and ascend into the open sky. The decision was made. The plane was committed to its path. Meanwhile, in the Pan Am cockpit, an equally tense crew was listening, waiting for clearance to move. They were stranded on the runway, their own giant 747 waiting silently in the fog, listening to the radio, unaware that the KLM plane was barreling toward them. It was only when the Pan Am crew saw lights through the thick fog, saw the shape of a massive aircraft materializing before them, that they realized the danger. Look at him! That son of a... One of the Pan Am pilots shouted as the KLM plane appeared, suddenly emerging from the fog like a phantom. A steel behemoth with nowhere to go. Imagine that terror, that helplessness as you see another plane bearing down on you, knowing there's no escape. The moments that followed were filled with desperation, a frantic attempt to maneuver to find safety where none existed. But there was no room, no time. The collision that followed was both devastating and merciless. The two planes collided on the runway, a thunderous crash that shattered the quiet of the fog-bound airport. Metal-twisted engines exploded, and fire erupted from the shattered remains of the aircraft. Inside each plane, passengers and crew were thrown into chaos. Those who had been lulled by hours of waiting, perhaps reading or napping, were now thrust into a nightmare. Flames consumed the aircraft, thick smoke filling the cabin, the acrid smell of burning fuel mixing with the screams of passengers. Rescue crews struggled to navigate through the fog, through the maze of twisted metal and burning wreckage. Survivors stumbled out of the wreckage, disoriented, some injured, all in shock. For those who made it out, the nightmare wasn't over. The thick, choking fog made it hard to breathe, and the searing heat of the flames pushed them further into confusion. And in the control tower, air traffic controllers, who had witnessed the unthinkable, were left reeling, questioning every decision, every word, every instruction given in those final minutes. But what brought these events to this tragic point? It was a perfect storm of miscommunications, assumptions, and a loss of control in the face of overwhelming pressure. The KLM captain believed he had takeoff clearance. He didn't. The Pan Am crew believed they were safe holding in position. They weren't. And the control tower, that last line of defense, was overwhelmed, struggling to manage too many planes in too little space, with visibility near zero. Each party operated with a sense of confidence, an assumption that everyone else knew the plan, that all parties were on the same page. Yet, in reality, they were in separate worlds, connected only by fragile words over a radio. Each word a potential lifeline or a potential disaster. This series of misunderstandings, of near misses and missed signals, built upon each other like dominoes, each falling into the next with increasing momentum until the inevitable happened. It was a tragedy that could have been avoided, but in the fog of human error and the pressure of the moment, those involved couldn't see the larger picture until it was too late. In that fog on the Tenerife runway, every decision, every delayed message, every moment of uncertainty added up. The lives lost were not due to a single mistake, but a cascade of small errors, each one compounding the last. It's a chilling reminder of how powerful words can be, and how dangerous silence becomes when communication is our only guide. It was as if the world shattered in a single blinding flash of fire and metal. One moment passengers were seated, buckled in for a smooth departure, or waiting in resigned impatience for clearance, oblivious to the deadly sequence unfolding in the fog outside their windows. The next moment, everything was engulfed in a violent, chaotic roar, deafening, gut-wrenching sound of metal, colliding at unimaginable speed, the unholy screech as massive wings, fuselages, and engines ripped into each other. In the midst of that sound, the world itself seemed to stop, and then with brutal speed, everything came crashing down. Imagine sitting in your seat, maybe glancing at a magazine, maybe closing your eyes to rest, when suddenly it's like the entire plane has been tossed, twisted by an invisible force, jolting every passenger in their seat as though the aircraft were made of paper. One passenger might feel their seatbelt, hold them tight. Another is thrown forward, hitting the seat in front of them with a sickening thud. Lights flicker overhead bins, pop open, spilling bags and belongings down onto the stunned passengers below. All around, a chorus of screams erupts, mingling with the horrifying sounds of tearing metal and roaring fire, as every single person in that moment is confronted with a terror they could never have imagined. Ladies and gentlemen, I hear myself echoing a phrase that pilots use every day. This is your captain speaking. Please fasten your seatbelts as we begin our descent toward Tenerife. But on that day, for those on board the two planes, there was no voice, no warning, just the jarring, terrible realization that they were in the middle of a nightmare. The plane shudders, fire races along the cabin walls, and thick, acrid smoke fills the space in seconds. Breathing becomes nearly impossible, the air thick and choking, every inhalation stinging like poison. Some passengers try to cover their faces instinctively, shielding their noses and mouths, but the smoke is relentless, invading every corner, clouding every corner, clouding every attempt to see, to understand what's happening. The fear is tangible, a presence as thick as the smoke itself, pressing down on them, trapping them. In this chaos, some passengers are paralyzed by fear, frozen in their seats, clutching armrests, as if they might somehow protect them. Others are screaming, calling out for loved ones, for help, for anyone. But within this moment of sheer panic, there are also acts of courage, moments of human resilience that defy the horror around them. People who had never spoken a word to each other before are now reaching out, helping one another, lifting one another, lifting the injured, guiding each other toward the exits. In the face of impossible terror, humanity shines through in small, remarkable ways. One flight attendant, her face streaked with smoke and tears, is fighting her way down the aisle, shouting directions, trying to keep passengers calm, urging them toward the emergency exits. She moves as if the flames and smoke are nothing, as if her own life isn't in jeopardy. Nearby, a man pulls himself from his seat, ignoring the fire creeping closer, and helps a fellow passenger unbuckle, lifting them up and pushing them toward safety. The selflessness, the sheer bravery of these individuals is astonishing, and it's a reminder of the strength people find in moments of unspeakable horror. But the flames grow faster than they can move. They spread with a deadly, relentless hunger, consuming seats, walls, everything in their path. For some, escape is not possible. The fire is everywhere, the thick smoke so overpowering that every breath feels like it could be the last. And as they push forward, many stumble and fall, disoriented, choking, unable to see beyond the endless wall of black on the Pan Am. Plane passengers and crew alike struggle toward exits, pressing forward with the instinctual desperation of survival. For those who manage to find a way out, the runway outside is a new nightmare, cold, drenched in fog, the burning remains of metal casting an eerie light into the mist. There are no words to describe the surreal horror of escaping such chaos, stepping out into the open, only to find themselves surrounded by a wasteland of wreckage and fire. And for every person who manages to escape, there is the heart-wrenching knowledge that others will not be as fortunate. Imagine what it felt like for those few who did make it out, glancing back and realizing the sheer scope of the tragedy behind them. The vast Boeing 747, a symbol of modern engineering reduced to a broken flaming skeleton. They stumble away, some helping others, who have managed to escape their clothes, singed their faces, smeared with soot and smoke, their eyes wide with shock. For a few moments, they simply stand breathing in the cold, wet air outside, disbelieving, trying to process the horror they have just survived. Back inside, though, chaos continues. The KLM cockpit is a scene of devastation, the pilots trapped in a nightmare of their own. The impact has shattered their calm professional demeanor, leaving only terror and the instinct to survive. But escape for them is impossible. The plane is engulfed, the cockpit buried in flame and smoke, and any chance of survival has vanished in an instant. For the survivors, each second drags on like a lifetime. Every step, every breath in the smoky darkness feels like a battle for life itself. And as they stagger away from the wreckage, their senses overwhelmed by the sight of flames, the smell of burning metal, the taste of smoke still on their tongues, they are bound forever to this moment, to this place in a way that few can truly understand. And even now, all these years later, it's hard to truly grasp the magnitude of what happened on that fog-bound runway in Tenerife. It's a story of human error, of misunderstandings that spiraled into tragedy, of lives lost and lives forever changed. But perhaps, above all, it's a reminder of the fragility of life, of the way that in an instant, everything can change. The passengers and crew who lived through that terrible day carried those memories with them, testament to the strength and courage it takes to face the unthinkable, and a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there can be light. As the flames slowly died down on that fog-covered runway in Tenerife, what remained was an overwhelming silence. The smoke, the twisted wreckage, the faint murmurs of those who had made it out, all of it combined to form a haunting reminder of the lives that had been irreversibly changed in a matter of moments. But behind the images of burned-out metal and scattered debris were stories, deeply personal ones, full of dreams, hopes, and lives abruptly cut short. To truly understand the tragedy of Tenerife, we must look beyond the statistics and the technical details. We must see the people who boarded those planes that day, completely unaware of the fate that awaited them. Each passenger and crew member on those flights had a story, a purpose for their journey, a destination they were hoping to reach. Among them was the KLM captain, Jacob Van Zanten, a man with decades of experience and a respected reputation in the airline industry. To his fellow pilots, he was something of a legend, calm, collected, and highly capable aviator who had trained many other pilots in KLM's fleet. His presence in the cockpit was a source of reassurance for his crew, a feeling of security that this seasoned pilot would see them safely through any challenge. But on that day, even his extensive training and vast experience couldn't shield him from the pressure building up within him. Van Zanten's decision to initiate takeoff, believing he had clearance, would lead to consequences he couldn't have imagined. For his crew, who trusted him implicitly, the tragedy that followed was a stark reminder of how even the smallest misunderstanding, the smallest error in judgment, can alter everything. And in that Pan Am cockpit sat Captain Victor Grubbs, a seasoned pilot himself, with years of experience and countless flights under his belt. He was known for his calm, professional demeanor and had navigated difficult situations many times. But that day, as his plane waited on the fog-covered runway, he and his crew found themselves in an unimaginable situation. Grubbs had radioed for instructions, believed he was safely holding, and had no idea that another giant 747 was barreling down the runway directly toward him. It wasn't until he saw the KLM plane emerge from the mist like a monstrous shadow moving with deadly intent that the full horror struck him. In that instant, he knew his passengers, his crew, and he himself were in unimaginable danger, trapped in a nightmare from which there was no waking. 4 Grubbs and his crew surviving that day would mean carrying the weight of witnessing and being part of one of aviation's most tragic days. But the tragedy wasn't just confined to the cockpit. Behind each seat number, there was a person, a family, a life story. Take, for instance, the family of Carmen, a mother who had boarded the Pan Am flight with her husband and children. They were on their way to a much-anticipated vacation, the kind of trip they had been saving for and dreaming about for years. For Carmen, like many other parents on that flight, the trip was a chance to create memories, to spend time together as a family, to show her children the world. But that dream shattered when the collision occurred, leaving Carmen's family among the countless others whose lives would be forever changed. In the aftermath, the families of victims would face not only the heartbreak of their loss, but the unimaginable reality that their loved ones had been just moments away from safety, that a few words over the radio could have changed everything. For some, the escape from the wreckage was nothing short of miraculous. But even survival came at a cost. Linda Eastman, a young woman traveling for work, was seated near the back of the Pan Am plane. She had just been reading, perhaps already, thinking of the sunny island ahead, when the crash threw her forward, leaving her momentarily stunned. By the time she came to her senses, the cabin was filling with smoke, and flames were racing along the aisle. Linda, with adrenaline and sheer instinct as her only guides, managed to free herself crawling over seats, helping others to their feet as she moved toward the emergency exit. She survived, but for the rest of her life, the memories of that day, the screams, the heat of the flames, the faces of those who didn't make it out, would haunt her. Survival meant living with the scars, both visible and invisible, a reminder of the life-altering impact of that day. Another story belongs to a Pan Am flight attendant named Dorothy Kelly, known to her friends and family as a vibrant, compassionate woman who loved her job and cared deeply for the passengers under her care. In those final moments as chaos erupted around her, Dorothy didn't hesitate. She went from seat to seat, helping people unbuckle, guiding them to the exit and trying to keep them calm as they pushed through the smoke. Witnesses recalled how Dorothy remained composed, even as flames closed in around her, reassuring passengers with her voice and her touch. But even her courage couldn't overcome the obstacles around her. In the confusion, some passengers lost sight of her, and ultimately Dorothy herself did not survive the day. For her family and friends, the loss was incomprehensible, and her bravery became part of the legacy. She left behind a reminder that in moments of unimaginable crisis, there are those who put others before themselves. The ripple effects of that day stretched far beyond the borders of Tenerife. Families all over the world were struck by grief, left to cope with the sudden and senseless loss of loved ones. Imagine the experience of one family who had sent off their daughter, Susan, with a hug and a wave, excited for her to experience the world beyond her hometown. Her parents could never have anticipated that the news they'd later receive would come in the form of a phone call, telling them their daughter was one of those who had perished. For Susan's family, as for so many others, the reality of her death was a shock that they would carry for the rest of their lives. She had been just a seat number on a flight, manifest a name in a list, but to her family, she was irreplaceable, her absence an unfillable void. And then there were those who were left behind, the ones waiting at their destination, anticipating the arrival of friends, family, colleagues, and loved ones. At the Gran Canaria airport, a woman named Maria waited eagerly for her sister, a flight attendant on the KLM flight. She had arranged a warm welcome, her heart full of excitement for their long-awaited reunion. But as time passed and news trickled in, that anticipation turned to dread. In the end, Maria had to face the unbearable truth that her sister would never arrive. That sense of hope, replaced by the sharp sting of loss, became a reality that Maria would live with, a reminder of the unpredictability and the fragility of life. What's heartbreaking is that so many of these personal tragedies were the result of human errors that, in other circumstances, might have seemed trivial. The miscommunication over the radio, the assumptions made under pressure, the urgent push to stay on schedule. These factors, each one small on its own, cascaded into a chain of events that no one could stop. It's a reminder of how our lives can be altered by the smallest decisions, by moments, where we're unaware of just how far-reaching the consequences might be. The Tenerife disaster left a legacy not only in terms of changes to aviation procedures, but in the countless lives impacted by that single day. Those who survived carry with them memories that no amount of time can erase. Those who lost loved ones are left with an ache, a hollow space where someone once stood. And even those of us who read these stories, who hear about these personal tragedies, are left with a sense of the fragility of life, a reminder of the importance of every moment and every decision. As the smoke cleared from the runway at Los Rodeos, the weight of what had happened began to settle over the world. The Tenerife disaster wasn't just another accident. It was a tragedy that shattered hundreds of families, deeply scarred survivors, and shook the entire aviation industry to its core. This catastrophe wasn't simply a headline or a tragic footnote in history books. It was a searing event that left a permanent mark on everyone touched by it, from the loved ones who would never see their family members. Again, to the aviation professionals who would work tirelessly to ensure that no one else would ever endure such a nightmare. The families of the victims were the first to experience the brutal aftermath, the devastating void left by those who had boarded those flights with plans, dreams, and futures that would never come to be. Some families had eagerly awaited the arrival of their loved ones in Gran Canaria, prepared to greet them with open arms, only to receive the news that the journey had ended in unfathomable tragedy. For them, that airport reunion, once a scene of joy and anticipation, became an enduring symbol of loss. Imagine standing in an airport, watching as other passengers reunite with their families, but realizing that your loved one will never walk through that door. It's a moment of heartbreak and finality, a reality that no one should ever have to face. For others, the news reached them through phone calls and felt like the worst kind of nightmare. The ones where every word seems unreal. Imagine answering the phone, hearing the calm voice on the other end telling you that there's been an incident, and feeling the ground drop from beneath you as the truth slowly sinks in. Many families spent days in shock, grappling with disbelief. A quiet hope that somehow it was all a mistake, that they would wake up from this nightmare. But as the details of the crash emerged, that hope gave way to a grief as heavy as the fog that had cloaked the runway. Children lost, parents, spouses were left alone, and countless families were broken in a single devastating instant. The emotional impact of the Tenerife disaster rippled far beyond those directly affected. The entire aviation community was struck by the sheer horror of it. This wasn't just a lesson in safety protocols. It was a tragic reminder of the fragility of human life, the power of simple misunderstandings, and the responsibility that each person in the aviation chain holds. Pilots, air traffic controllers, flight crews felt the weight of what had happened. Many asked themselves if they too could have made similar mistakes under such pressure, if they could have fallen into the same traps of miscommunication. The reality was unsettling, a harsh reminder of the responsibility that rests on their shoulders every time they step into their roles. The disaster also brought forth an industry-wide recognition of the need for systemic change. The tragedy at Tenerife was a watershed moment, a turning point, where it became clear that old methods weren't enough, that lives could be saved, if the industry was willing to confront the flaws exposed by this event. The aviation world had to face an uncomfortable truth. This wasn't merely a freak accident, but a preventable disaster, one rooted in human error, miscommunication, and a lack of structured procedures. One of the most significant outcomes was a new focus on crew resource management, CRM, a concept that emerged directly in response to Tenerife. CRM emphasized the importance of open communication, teamwork, and hierarchy awareness within the cockpit. It introduced the idea that even the most experienced captain must welcome input from all crew members, that every voice counts, and that assumptions can be fatal. This marked a profound shift in aviation culture, where once the captain's word had been absolute, now crew members were empowered to speak up, to question, to collaborate in decision-making processes. The goal was to prevent any one person's perspective from overriding safety, to create an environment where every member of the crew could contribute to a safer flight. The implementation of CRM also extended to air traffic control, where the tragedy underscored the need for clearer, standardized communication. Phrases like takeoff and hold short were refined and codified, leaving no room for ambiguity. A new language of precision emerged, a language that every pilot and air traffic controller would come to know intimately. From now on, clarity became a non-negotiable part of the aviation world. This was a hard-learned lesson, a lesson written in loss, in grief, and in the memories of those who had paid the ultimate price. These changes, however, didn't bring immediate comfort to those who had lost loved ones in the disaster. For many families, knowing that safety protocols were improving was small solace. The reality was that these improvements had come too late to save their own loved ones. The emotional scars were deep, a constant reminder that lives could have been saved if only these changes had come sooner. For these families, each new safety protocol was a reminder of the lives lost of the people who would never board a plane again, who would never get to see these changes make flying safer. And yet for some, there was a bittersweet solace in knowing that their tragedy might prevent future ones. Parents who had lost children, husbands who had lost wives, and children left without. Parents often spoke of a single hope, that no one else would have to endure the pain that they were living with. It became their mission, their motivation to support the industry's efforts to reform, to speak out about the importance of safety, to push for accountability and transparency. They wanted the world to remember not just the technical details, but the human cost of the lives that could have been. The Tenerife disaster became a powerful symbol, a tragic rallying point that forever changed aviation safety. For those within the industry, it was no longer acceptable to take safety for granted, to assume that standard procedures would always suffice. Instead, they were compelled to constantly ask how they could do better, how they could prevent the chain of errors that had led to that fateful day in 1976. Airline companies invested heavily in training, ensuring that CRM became an integral part of every pilot's and controller's education. The culture of the cockpit was transformed from a hierarchical command structured to one of collaboration and shared responsibility. The emotional impact of Tenerife didn't just stay within the aviation community. It reached the public too. Passengers around the world began to pay more attention to safety. Briefings to understand that the people guiding them through those flights were working in an industry transformed by tragedy. For the first time, many passengers understood that their safety was secure, not just by the mechanical integrity of the aircraft, but by the vigilance, training, and communication of the people guiding them. It was a reminder that flying, while routine for many, was a complex and delicate process, requiring the utmost focus and teamwork. To this day, the Tenerife disaster serves as a haunting reminder of what can happen when small errors compound into a tragedy of unspeakable scale. For families left behind, it's a memory they live with every day, a piece of their hearts that will never heal. For those who survived, it's a weight they carry, an experience that has shaped every moment since. And for the aviation industry, it remains a constant call to vigilance, a warning that safety can never be taken lightly, that every flight is a responsibility, every word, every action, a potential link in a chain that can lead to life or death. The legacy of Tenerife is thus woven into the very fabric of modern aviation. It's in the protocols, in the CRM training sessions, in the precise language used in the cockpit and control tower. It's a legacy built on loss and pain, a testament to the people who boarded those planes and never made it to their destination. Their stories, their lives are honored, not just in words, but in the changes that arose from their loss, changes that continue to save lives every day. The world of aviation may look very different today, but at its core, it carries with it the memory of Tenerife. A memory that drives it forward, ever vigilant, ever focused on ensuring that such a tragedy is never repeated. In the years following the Tenerife disaster, as the aviation industry transformed and families began to rebuild their lives, there was a quiet yet unshakable understanding that this tragedy could never be forgotten. The Tenerife crash wasn't merely an accident. It became a solemn point in history that held layers of meaning, lessons, and memories. And as survivors, families, and communities around the world grappled with their loss, they also felt a need to remember truly and deeply those who had lost their lives that day, honoring their memories, ensuring that their lives were never reduced to mere numbers, became a vital part of the legacy of that fateful day. For the families of the victims, the memory of Tenerife is not confined to a specific date or place. It lives on in everyday moments and photos, displayed on mantles in the echoes of laughter once shared, and in the spaces left by those who are gone. Many families return to Tenerife, making pilgrimages to the place where their loved ones had spent their final moments, hoping to find a sense of closeness, a way to connect with the memories that felt so fragile. Over the years, Tenerife itself has become a place of remembrance, where survivors and families can pay tribute, hold vigils, and reflect on the lives that were forever changed. One of the most touching acts of commemoration was the creation of memorials that offer a tangible place for people to come together and remember. Near the site of the collision, at Los Rodeos Airport, a small but poignant memorial was erected. For many, this place holds a profound significance. Visitors, some family members, others strangers touched by the story, come to leave flowers, letters, and small personal items, quiet offerings that symbolize the lives of those lost. It's a place that fosters reflection, a place where people can feel connected not just to their own memories, but to the memories of countless others who were touched by the tragedy. Imagine standing at that memorial. The air is often still the fog, a quiet reminder of the weather that played such a devastating role that day. The quiet seems almost to hold the weight of history, as though the land itself remembers the tragedy that unfolded there. Families, some of whom travel from distant parts of the world, stand in silence, their faces marked by a mixture of grief and reverence. They may never have met each other, but in that moment they are bound together by a shared loss, by the same enduring pain. For the families of the Pan Am and KLM crew members, memorials took on a deeply personal meaning. Colleagues and friends of those who had perished felt the need to remember their fellow crew members, not just as employees, but as individuals, as people who had dedicated their lives to the art and science of flying. Some of these memorials were placed at the respective airlines' headquarters, where former colleagues, friends, and family could visit, placing plaques, wreaths, and photographs. These small acts of remembrance transformed corporate spaces into places of personal connection, places where the lives of the lost were honored for the dedication and bravery they had shown. But these memorials are more than just physical spaces. For those left behind, they are places of healing, small sanctuaries where grief and remembrance can coexist. Families have shared stories of visiting these sites on anniversaries, bringing mementos, letters, photographs, favorite belongings of those they lost. One father, remembering his daughter, brings a small flower each year, quietly laying it beside the engraved names. He once shared that visiting the memorial feels like being close to her, even if just for a fleeting moment. Another woman shared that she brings her granddaughter to the site, telling her about the aunt she never knew, the laughter they shared, the memories that will live on through her words. These rituals of remembrance serve a profound purpose. They remind the world that those who perished that day were more than just passengers. They were fathers, mothers, children, friends, colleagues, all with live stories and people who loved them. And for the families, knowing that their loved ones are remembered and honored brings a sense of comfort, a feeling that their lives continued to hold meaning. In these moments of remembrance, a connection is forged, a bond that transcends time and place, a way of ensuring that the legacy of Tenerife is not only one of loss, but also of love, resilience, and enduring memory. Beyond these memorials, the anniversary of the Tenerife disaster has become a significant date in the lives of those affected. Every March, families, survivors, and supporters come together not only at the site in Tenerife, but in ceremonies held worldwide, united in their commitment to remember. Vigils are held, candles are lit, and names are read aloud, each one a tribute to a life lived and lost. These ceremonies are marked by a sense of community, a reminder that even in their darkest moments, those affected are not alone. People come together to share stories, to honor memories, and to support one another, finding strength in collective remembrance. The impact of Tenerife extends even further. As the years have passed, aviation professionals have also honored the memory of the victims through their commitment to safety. The industry has adopted March 27th as a day of reflection, a day when safety is paramount, and the lessons learned from that tragedy are reaffirmed. Pilots, flight attendants, and air traffic controllers observe moments of silence, and many participate in programs dedicated to crew resource management, the protocol that was born from Tenerife's painful lessons. For those who work in the skies, the memory of Tenerife is a constant reminder of their responsibility, a silent vow that such a tragedy should never happen again. Families have expressed that, while these changes in aviation provide comfort, their greatest solace comes from the enduring legacy of remembrance. Over the years, books have been written, documentaries produced, each one capturing the events of that day with a focus not just on the technical aspects, but on the human stories behind them. Survivors and families have bravely shared their memories, their grief, their hopes for a world where such an event is never repeated. Their voices have become an essential part of the narrative, a way of ensuring that the legacy of Tenerife is one of remembrance and learning. In a sense, the memory of Tenerife lives on through these shared stories. Families speak of how their loved ones have become symbols of resilience and strength, inspiring future generations to live with compassion, courage, and respect for life. One mother whose son perished on the Pan Am flight shared that she often tells her grandchildren about their uncle. She describes him not just as a name on a list, but as a person full of life. Someone who loved music, who had dreams, who was taken too soon. Her words are a tribute to his memory, a way of passing down his story to a new generation. These personal stories, these acts of commemoration, are what give Tenerife its enduring legacy. They transform what could have been a forgotten tragedy into a living memory, one that continues to impact lives even decades later. ... The Tenerife disaster. Though a moment of immense sorrow, has become a testament to the strength of human connection, to the ways in which love and remembrance can triumph over even the greatest loss. So, as we remember Tenerife, we don't only think of the numbers or the headlines. We think of the lives, the families, the people who continue to carry the memory forward. In each memorial, in every anniversary, and through every story, shared Tenerife's legacy lives on. It's a reminder that even in the darkest moments, memory can be a light guiding us forward, ensuring that those who are gone are never truly lost. They live on in our stories, our hearts, and our commitment to a safer world, a world that remembers. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking for the last time. Welcome to Tenerife. It's just a few minutes past 7 a.m., and you may now unfasten your seatbelts. We want to thank you for flying with us, and hope you enjoyed the journey.